listening to Urban View Mornings with Kevin Powell
on Sirius XM.
We say, we them people, we the people, we are those people. We want to be free, we gonna be free. Let's get free, yo.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Let's get free. Good morning. I'm so happy. I'm back. I'm here. This is Kevin Powell, Urban View Mornings. I'm on Wednesdays and Thursdays, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Got to shout out Sam, my producer in Chicago, Daryl, our engineer in D.C., and in the studio with me is Jonah, our associate producer here in New York City. Y'all, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I've had my morning smoothie, my morning vegan burrito, and I got my water here because I drink y'all water. Drink the water, y'all. Drink your water. Drink your water. Drink your water. If you can drink your water or get some bottled water of some sort. If the water's not clean where you are, I want to stress that. We're going to be doing a very special show today about fathers and manhood. As y'all know, Sunday is Father's Day, Sunday, June 16th, which is also my late brother Tupac Shakur's birthday. He would have been 53, Jonah, 53. Tupac died at 25. Which is deep when you think about it. Tupac would have been 53 years old this year. And so this is a special show. We've got a number of people who are going to be on the line. Folks are going to be calling in. And, for callers out there, 866-801-8255, no matter where you are in the country, on the planet. Yesterday, we had calls from all over the country, including the West Coast. I know a lot of West Coast folks will be calling in today, even though it's early on the East Coast, mad early, as we say. But this is a very important topic, near and dear to my heart, about fatherhood. Before we get into it, I want to just do a quick meditation, as we always do. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. Just listen to this music. Some of y'all know the song that you hear me start the show off with is called We Them People. It's from my 2024 Grammy-nominated spoken word poetry album called Grocery Shopping with My Mother. And I have a track on there also called My Father, which is about my father not being in my life and me coming to terms with that as an adult and forgiving him. And the opening part of the song is actually a meditation. And so I want to play the track. It's instrumental. It's about, are we doing 30 seconds or 60 seconds? 60 seconds? We're going to do a 60-second meditation. Just listen to it wherever you are. No matter what you're doing right now, just breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. It's important for us, no matter how we identify ourselves. But men, anyone who identifies as a man out there, a boy out there, a male out there, we got to breathe, y'all. So just take a moment just to listen to the track, which was created by the great musician, producer, Taurus Mateen. Shout out to Taurus Mateen, who is Muslim, by the way. Assalamu alaikum, Taurus Mateen, wherever you are in the country. Listen to this track. This is our meditation for about 60 seconds.
As a little boy with a hole the size of a jumbo airplane with no arms.
No.
Because you did not know how to love yourself. I forgive you for telling my mother she lied, that you would never give her a near nickel for me again, though I did not know what a near nickel was. I forgive you for the times my mother yelled at me not to be like you, but then also screamed I was just like you.
You can just let it play for now, but yeah, that's the part right there. At this point, just let that play. They're meditating.
I forgive you for those moments when my mother grabbed and shook me when she really wanted to grab and shake you.
How are y'all feeling out there? 866-801-8255. We are talking about fatherhood. Shout out to all the fathers, role models, mentors, coaches, folks who are in any kind of leadership position who have an impact on people, especially younger people. Father's Day is this weekend. It's Sunday, and we're going to be celebrating fathers, those who had fathers, those who are fathers. We're also going to be talking about folks who may have had difficulties because, like myself, did not have a father figure in their life. We're going to talk about it all, but we're not going to act like black fathers do not exist because they do exist. All the men we have calling in today are in a film I have coming out in September. It's my first film as a director, y'all. It's called When We Free the World, and we have about 70 black men in the film, from teenagers to 90-somethings, which is really incredible. 5 generations of black males are in the film. Look for that film, When We Free the World. It'll be out in the fall. We'll be getting, putting information out there on Sirius XM, on Urban View, so you'll be hearing about it for sure. But what's really important to me when we were making the film is to represent and talk about fatherhood from different angles and not just have one storyline, one narrative. The usual narrative we hear, fathers are not there, fathers are not there. That's not true. We have the Reverend Dr. Herbert Dartrey on the line, who's just turned 93 years old this year, who's in the film. And he's someone that I have admired since I was a youth activist. When I was a teenager, I would hear the name Reverend Herbert Dartrey, incredible activist, faith-based leader, has done work around intersectionality long before it became a term where we need to work with different types of people. I mean, Reverend Dartrey's been there on the front lines for so long, and it's just an honor to have him as always, because he's one of our great leaders in our communities, and especially in Brooklyn, where I've been based for a long time. And Reverend Dartrey, can you hear me? Reverend Dartrey, are you there? Reverend Dartrey, can you hear me? Are you there, sir?
So I think, oh, there we
I
go.
can hear you. Can
Oh,
you hear me?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Is Herbert Jr. on with you, or he's on separately?
I'm on separate.
On with me, I think.
Oh, there he is. Wow, we got both we got Herbert Dartrey Sr. and Herbert Dartrey Jr. on, and Herb Jr. says that are you working in Newark now? Is that right? You're working over in Jersey in education?
Yeah, I'm working with the Newark Board of Education.
Awesome. It says that Herbert Dartrey Jr. is now the executive director of educator effectiveness. One of the most powerful moments in the film that y'all are in, that I was just talking about, When We Free the World, is coming out in the fall. And I don't know if y'all heard me, we have 70 black males in the film, between teenagers and 90-something, which is really incredible. 5 generations of black males. But one of my favorite moments is watching Herbert Dartrey Sr., Herbert Dartrey Jr., and then Herbert Dartrey Jr.'s 2 sons. So you literally have 3 generations of black males sitting there. And, you don't see those kind of images a lot. And so I just want to first say, just acknowledge both of you and with your whole family. Shout out to, Mama Dartrey, all the daughters, everyone, the whole family, because the Dartreys have been doing a lot of great work in our community for a very, very long time. Let me start with you as our elder, Reverend Dartrey. What does fatherhood mean to you after all these years of being a father and grandfather, and not just for your own children, but just you've mentored and helped a lot of people in our communities, not just in New York but all around the country and globally. What does the word father mean to you at this stage of your life?
Well, it means, in a sense, a perpetuation of the species or of the race, really, in general, and in particular, your particular family. And I look at it with the mythical bird of Sankofa, the bird, the acorn people of Africa, which you live in 3 time zones. You live in the present, of course, and you are part of the past, but you're always sowing seeds for the future. So what you do in the present is building blocks for the future. So fatherhood is the unparalleled blessing of having children, and therefore your life should be given to the future, raising your children. In our particular instance, I've been blessed to have 4 children, and that means an investment in time. It's just a lot of time. My Herb Jr. Was always with me in his early years. And, 2 things that we emphasize: religion, put God first, and education meant and a constant presence. So one of the things that I remember forever.
Yes, sir.
And taught the Powell everywhere I go. When Herb Jr. was about maybe 4, 3, 4, 5, so we play in the floor. I was always a part of the games and
Mm-hmm.
running the basketball court. But in his early years, he was playing in the floor and having a big time, and I was down there in the floor with him. Said, "What you doing, Dan? What that mean?" And then when I raised up, he looked up. He said, "Hey, Dad, I like you." I said, "Hey, man, why you like me?" He said, "You watch me do stuff."
Yes,
You know,
yes.
yeah. And fathers, all of us should understand what he was saying.
Mm,
That we need to pay attention to people and
that's right.
what they, what interest your children,
That's
you
right.
know, and be involved in the life of your children. So the bird, the mythical bird, the acorn, represent when you have children, then the bird walking, he's walking in the front, walking ahead, looking back,
Mm,
and sowing seeds,
that's right.
right? So that's our lives. We live in the present, product of the past, but the future, every day we make decisions. We're making decisions for the future. And when you have children, uh, you are you've got to be always thinking about their future and spending the time and the energy and whatever is
Yes.
necessary to ensure that they uh, live their lives, to give their lives, to perpetuate the future of themselves, of their children, and of the people. I've got a saying, save the planet, save the people. And that's what we should be about.
I agree. Good morning again, everyone. This is Kevin Powell, Urban View Mornings. We're doing a special 3-hour conversation with several black men who are participants in a documentary film I have coming out in the fall about black fatherhood, black manhood. They're all who are on the call with me will be folks who are in the film. There's 70 black male voices in the film between teenagers and 90 somethings. Folks who are, callers definitely are welcome to call in. But I'm giving the floor to folks who've been doing this work for a long time. Reverend Daughtry Sr., Reverend Dr. Herbert Daughtry Sr. is 93 years old this year, has been doing this work all of my lifetime. And I'm talking about work as a leader, as a community organizer, as an activist, as a father, role model, mentor to so many people. And I just want to give him his flowers while he's here. But Herbert Daughtry Jr. is on the phone as well, who's an educator. And, as you're listening to your father, I know you've heard the stories many times, you've heard your father speak many times. But two questions for you, Herbert Jr. What did you learn from your father about fatherhood? And then how did you remix it for yourself as a younger man once you became a father?
Those are two great questions. So, in terms of what I learned about fatherhood, I think one of the big things is the idea of consistency and integrity. So, being a man of your word. If you say you're going to do something, do that. If you say you're going to be somewhere, be there. And that means sometimes you can't be there. You can't promise to be there when you're not. Um,
Mm.
and as you know, I mean, my dad's been in activists and in movements for all of my life.
Yes, sir.
so, so there are times when he couldn't be at my baseball game or my
Mm.
basketball game. And you come to understand as you're older, but there was never a time when he said to me, I'm going to be at something and then not show up. If he said he was going to be there, he was
Wow.
there. And so
Yeah.
for me, that became a big element with my sons is, you know, if I say I'm going to take you somewhere, if I say we're going to do X, Y, or Z, or I say I'm going to be, then I've got to keep that promise.
Mm.
And so the integrity and the consistency of being there. There are countless lessons that I now impart to my sons that at the time when my father was trying to teach me, I was a teenager who couldn't hear it.
Mm.
Um, and I know I hear my father in a lot of the things I say to my sons as they've been growing up.
Mm.
And I know that they can't hear it. And I
Yes,
just
sir.
hope that as happened with me as I got older, um, it came to be well, that's just the right way to do it. And so, you know, that those kinds of things, and he would repeat things over and over, and that it gets in there.
Mm,
And so
mm.
now I pass them on to my sons as I try to raise them into the men I want them to be. I hope they become. Um, and then remind me the second question. I got off on that one a
How
little
did you
bit.
remix the lessons of your father for how you became a father?
So um, I think the way that I communicated them, I've shifted. A lot of the lessons, like I say, are the same, and I think the
Mm,
way I've tried to communicate them is um, probably a little more, uh, I guess, modern. Um,
mm.
my kids are growing up in the era of hip hop and in the
Social media.
big social media, right? And
Hmm.
so the counter to me is much more prevalent.
Mm,
The all the things that are working contrary to our family values, they have access to in the palm of their hands at any point, any time of the day. And
yes.
so I've had to try to be a little, be even perhaps more constant, but also try to put it into language and in spaces that they can relate to.
Mm.
Um,
How old are
the
your
same.
sons now? How old are your sons now, Herbert Jr., Herbert Darty Jr.,
So,
please?
so the oldest is 19 and the youngest is 17.
Wow. Wow. What do you feel is the big? I mean, you and I are. There's multiple hip hop generations, so we can't even just say hip hop
Right.
generation. We literally have 50 plus years of hip hop. But
Yeah. Yeah.
how are your sons as teenagers different than when we were growing up as teenagers? What are the challenges for young black men now and fathering a young black man now, in your opinion?
So it's interesting. My sister and I were actually talking about this one day
Mm,
last week, and I think what I've come to realize is because the world is small as a result of social media and the
mm,
world of hip hop. I mean, remember when we started off, you didn't even have videos. We just loved the music. We didn't
that's
get to
right.
see
That's
what
right.
they were wearing or what they were doing unless we went to a concert.
That's right.
Um, and so now you have all the flossing and all the grandiosity is now visual for them. But on top of that, we would compare ourselves to the people we could see. So that's the people we saw every day, right? So our
Mm,
friends lived near us,
mm,
right? Our friends lived in our neighborhoods, went to school with us. That's who we would perhaps compare ourselves to, and how great our wardrobe was, our sneakers were, our jacket was about the people around us. Nowadays, they're comparing themselves to anybody with a phone and the opportunity to post something.
wow.
And so when they look at their own lives, and they look at somebody far across the world that they don't know if it's real or not. They don't know if it's borrowed or not, but this person is posting how great this Lamborghini, and all of a sudden it's, how come I don't have a Lamborghini, right?
Mm,
And it
mm,
creates, comparison is the thief of joy, and it just creates this space where I believe our youth are trying to live up to and emulate a lifestyle that is hard to do, if not
mm.
impossible. And in some cases, based on what some of the current rap artists are doing, is counterproductive.
That's
Um,
that's profound because when I was coming up, even though I didn't have a father, I would hear names like your father's name, Herbert Dartrey, and other black men in our community who were doing the work in Brooklyn, Harlem, or all around the country. That's what I look toward, and you're right because I have an iPhone right now, or some folks have an Android. I could literally just in the palm of my hands be influenced by what I see and have no kind of connection because for me, what did it for me to both of you, Herbert Dartrey Jr. and Sr., was hearing, what the brothers were doing in the community. And so I got to ask y'all a question, both the same question, two quick questions, because we don't have a lot of time. I know y'all got other things to do, and I appreciate y'all giving us time. What is your simple definition of manhood right now in 2024? What does manhood mean to you both? And then what does spirituality mean or should mean to us as we think about being men, being better men, being better fathers? I'm not talking about organized religion. Folks can be Christian, Muslim, Jewish, other faiths. Spirituality, like what should we be thinking about spiritually as fathers, as men, and what does manhood mean to both of you really quickly, please?
For for, for me, and is a phrase. We have been created to contribute.
Mm,
Uh, we have been made the master. We are on this earth to perpetuate a quality of life for the planet and for the people. That's why I phrased make the phrase saving the planet, saving the people. And our lives, and this is what we taught our children, our lives should be lived not just for ourselves, but for what we can give, what we can share, how can we make the planet better? How can we make those around us better? And so all of our children are professionals, but in giving, education, religion. So I believe that manhood, and particularly that's the subject, fatherhood, but peoplehood is that we all should have an understanding that we all have gifts.
Yes.
Everyone.
Yes.
Have that within themselves, which the Almighty God has put within them, and to cultivate that and to understand that you've got to make the world better and you've got to make people better. And so at the end of the day, how we lived our lives will be evaluated, and how much we left behind. That's why I used the bird, the mythical bird, the Sankofa at the beginning of the program. At my age now is 93. I usually say 94. I put it up. Reminder that I'm making decisions now that is going to be for the future. They just did one of my books last night, remembering the passing of. I remember 60 people across over 65 years, by the way, Kevin. And let me take a moment to say how much we appreciate you.
Oh, my gosh.
As long as I've been knowing you, you've been trying to do this kind of work that you're doing now, projecting education, projecting how to build better communities, a better positive giving lifestyle. So we want to appreciate you. But that, to me,
thank you, sir. Thank you so much. All praise is due to God. Thank you.
Is like what we should be about. We should have a vision of ourselves, of the people around us, of building a better world.
Yes, sir.
Building,
yes, sir.
Doing the things that make life better. And at the end of the day, that's, I think, we're going to be calculated or evaluated. And for those of us who are blessed to have families, and especially in my case, man, I'm so proud of these children.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They're all doing great things. They all have traveled abroad. They all have been exposed. Herb Jr., he studied in France. I told all the children, when you get these semesters abroad, pick a different country. Don't all you go to the same place. And so when they meet in the family, they bring back, one studied in France, one studied in Spain, one in France, Spain, Italy. And I said that you don't have to worry about Africa. We're going to do that. We're going to do the Africa piece. And we're going to bring the Africa to us with great leaders. And we're going to visit Africa. So go across the world.
Go across the world. Go across the world. Yeah.
The world. It's hard to be narrow in your thinking. So my teaching is I tried to live out a life that said that I've given it the best I could, and hope that I put some footprints on the sands of time that could be followed. Children would be proud of me and say, yeah, that's what my father's footprints. They're headed in the right direction.
Yes, sir. Everyone, y'all are listening to the Reverend Dr. Herbert Daughtry Sr., who just turned 93 years old this year. He is a father, leader, organizer, activist, so many different things. I just, you fathered biological children, but I would consider myself one of your children as well, sir, because you have blessed so many of us and given us an example. And something you said, we have been created to contribute. When I asked you the question about fatherhood and manhood, you said we have been created to contribute. We also have on the line Herbert Daughtry Jr., who's an incredible educator. Herbert Daughtry, just really quickly, Jr., please, your thoughts on what manhood should mean and fatherhood. The question I gave to your father about, spiritually and where we are in 2024. What do we need to be thinking about?
Okay, so I think much of what my dad said, I agree with all of what my dad said, and a lot of it's the same. I would have the same kind of ideas. I think just in terms of fatherhood, manhood, I think there are a couple of ideas that I believe are crucial, and that's one I mentioned earlier is being consistent and having integrity in your word. Word is my bond, right? When you say word is bond, word bond, that that's important to me. Is what you say you're gonna do that to the best of your ability. Sometimes circumstances may mess you up, but to the best of your ability, do that.
Mm.
Um, and then doing whatever you're engaging in,
Yes.
always putting your best forward.
Yes.
Whatever the activity is, put your best effort at it. Make sure that anyone who sees it knows he tried everything he could. He put all his energy to it. He didn't
Excellence,
mail it in.
excellence, excellence. Like Jay-Z said, strive for excellence. Yes.
Exactly, all the
Yes.
time, all the time.
Yes.
So, those are two key things I think. In terms of fatherhood, it's a different world.
Mm.
Um, and
Mm.
where the kids are coming up now, it's a different world, and figuring out, and every child is different.
Yes.
My two sons, only 2 years apart, raised in the same house, diametrically different personalities and
Mm.
interests.
Mm.
And so trying to figure out how to communicate with your kids. You can't change the message, you have to change the delivery.
Mm.
Um,
Can't change
right?
the message. You might need to change the delivery with your kids.
Eh,
Got it.
Yeah, exactly,
Wow.
exactly.
Mm.
So I think those are some of the key elements in the spirituality. We're in a time where um, the belief we have to have a strong belief in, and I'm a believer in God, but if yours is Allah or Buddha or whoever it might be, but that belief in a higher something that uh, that should guide your operating principles.
Mm.
Um, that belief that you are part of a larger community, a larger system, and therefore your actions impact others.
Your
And
actions impact others. Your actions impact others. Wow.
and so making choices that are not just selfish, and how does this impact the folks around me? How does this impact my community? How does
Mm.
this impact the world?
Yeah.
And thinking
Yeah.
about that kind of element, I think is where we can get to some folks spiritually, because I think social media and artificial intelligence is such a major piece, and AI becoming more and more so. It's such a major part of what this generation is dealing with,
Mm.
that it is easy for counter and I don't want to say counterculture, because in sometimes counterculture was great, but some of the things countering the positivity, it's so easy for it to infiltrate our youth and our communities, and so you know, kind of continuing to ascribe to that higher authority.
Yes. The higher
Um,
authority. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I believe that's the spirituality element of it that our fathers and our men have to try and really push toward.
Everyone out there that's in the Sirius XM Urban View Mornings family, this is Kevin Powell. As y'all know, I'm on Wednesdays and Thursdays, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Father's Day is this Sunday, June 16th, which also happens to be my brother Tupac Shakur's birthday. He would have been 53 years old. We have probably about 25 dynamic black males across generations coming on. For this first half hour, you've been listening to the Reverend Dr. Herbert Daughtry Sr., who just turned 93 years young this year. Reverend Dr. Herbert Daughtry Sr., 93 years young this year. And he's also been on with his son, Herbert Daughtry Jr. We've been talking about fatherhood, manhood. I really appreciate their points about spirituality. We have a few folks who are faith-based leaders. And I see Kendrick Bryan in the holding room right now. We have folks who are faith-based leaders who understand the importance of spirituality. We're not trying to impose anything on y'all, but what I believe both Daughtries are saying, and correct me if I'm not wrong, you gotta have something that you can anchor as you move through this world trying to figure out what it is to be a black man and what it is to be a black father. Is that right, both Daughtries? issues, can y'all just amen me or yes me or something?
Yes, you
Absolutely.
said it well.
Uh, I'm sorry, I meant to say, and I forgot.
Yes, sir.
Like my dad, I definitely want to express my appreciation for you because you've been on this grind for years, for
All praises
decades.
due to God. Thank you.
I really appreciate your effort and energy that you put into this and continue to work with.
Well, I appreciate you all. And for those who are just joining us, what I was saying is that we have about 25 black males across 5 different generations joining us today for this conversation. And all of them are in a film that we have coming out later this year called When We Free the World. We got 70 black males in the film, 5 generations, all kinds of black males. And it's really important that we have that diversity in this conversation today. We're going to take a break. I'm going to play a bunch of music today that's related to fathers. I'm going to start with a song that I absolutely love, the late, great Luther Vandross' song, Dance with My Father, which still touches my heart to this day. I see y'all calls. We got a lot of calls holding on. I'm going to get to the calls. I see folks in Maryland, Alabama, around the country. This is an important conversation, so we're dedicating the whole 3 hours. I see you, David Young. I see my Alpha brothers out there around the country. This whole 3 hours is dedicated to what it is to be a black father and what it is to be a black man. So please hold on, and we're going to have a very serious conversation. It's going to continue. In Dartrey family, thank y'all for taking the time first thing in the morning. God bless y'all. I appreciate y'all, and thank y'all for your wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, as we have said before. And by the way, you mentioned Tupac. Tupac, was a member of our church. I
That's
watched
right.
him grow up, and wish we had time to talk about him. But thank you for having us on. And Herb Jr., man, I call him Dan. I love him.
Well, Reverend
proud.
Dartrey, if you're able to hold on for a second when we come back from the commercial break, we can mention Tupac for a second. We can mention it really quickly because I think it's important. Given Tupac's impact on generations of black males, I do want to mention Tupac at some point during this show. If you can hold on for a second, we'll be right back. We just need to take a quick commercial break. Is that all right?
Yes, I'll be here.
Yes, sir. God bless you. Well, hold on, y'all. And Pastor Brian, I see you. David Young, I see you. We're going to be right back to y'all in a second. Hold on. Pastor Brian, Deacon Young, Brother Quentin Walcott, Brother Q, can y'all hear me? Good morning to y'all. Can y'all unmute?
Yes, sir. How you doing, man?
Okay. Y'all good. First of all, God bless
Good
y'all.
morning.
Thank y'all so much. Man, we got the gate. As soon as I got on the air, the callers were calling in. Brother Peter, Chaplain Peter. I feel good. We got the spiritual foundation in the morning coming out the gate. I love it. Thank y'all so much. We got a lot of folks calling in. We got 3 hours of this. Whatever time y'all can give, I appreciate it. I'm just asking, I don't ever write questions down. It's 2 simple questions I've been asking folks. What does fatherhood mean to you? What does manhood mean to you? And then based on how y'all answer the question, I kind of go from there and ask follow questions of y'all. And if there's something you want to promote, please promote it because y'all are all over the country. They literally have brothers calling in from East Coast to the West Coast and all points in between, down south, etc. I'm talking about folks of y'all who are guests.
90 seconds.
So if there's something you wanted to promote, you want to give people your social media handles. I know Q, you have your Father's Day pledge today, so let's definitely stress that and also give them a website so they can follow up if people want to support your organization. Is that cool?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Appreciate it. And Brother Kendrick, obviously I'm going to talk about our relationship of, your family. You know how I feel about you, the love I have for your family. So, and well, we're going to, all of y'all, just thank y'all. All of y'all in the film, which is beautiful to see y'all together. This is the prelude to when the film comes out and how we're going to be doing this kind of stuff in person around the country. So I'm excited, y'all. And,
Sorry, would you like to come back?
And Kenny Anderson is on the line as well.
Oh, good. I see Kenny in Alabama. Yeah.
30 seconds.
Let's do Chrisette Michelle's Your Joy.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Hold on, y'all. We're coming live in a second.
20 seconds. Muting mic.
And when we go to a break, do not wait till the music completely fades, please.
Got
Muting
it.
mics.
We're celebrating fathers. We're celebrating and they're talking about manhood. This is a special show. All 3 hours, y'all, are dedicated today. We have incredible black men from all over the country who are in a film I've been working on for 5 long years. It's finally coming out this fall called When We Free the World. For those who are just joining us, we have 70 black male voices in the film between teenagers and 90-something. And one of those elders is on the call with us as well. He's not on the Zoom call with us, but he's on a line. The Reverend Dr. Herbert Darchie, who just turned 93 years young this year. And, we have some new folks that are joining the conversation. And I see y'all on the calls. I'm going to get to the calls, I promise you. And I really appreciate y'all calling so early in the morning. We have Quentin Walcott on now, who's the executive director of Connect NYC, who's been doing incredible work for so many years around redefining manhood, and they do something every year that he'll be talking about called a Father's Day Pledge. David Young, who's the director of Toledo Excel, a special project at the University of Toledo in Ohio, and David is also my Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity brother. And one of the, I just need to say, every time I've been to Toledo, Ohio, David has his own son. Shout out to Jelani, who'll be on later today, who's a 20-something and just became a father himself. But the Toledo Excel program is one of those programs that helps kids to get to college. It helps high school kids. And David's been a father figure for so many across generations, so I need to acknowledge that. We have Pastor Kendrick Bryan, who's a motivational speaker and host of a podcast called A Father's Perspective. Y'all need to check that out, A Father's Perspective. And Kendrick, can they hear that anywhere? Can they go to Spotify, Apple, anywhere the podcasts are to listen to
anywhere.
it?
Yep, that's correct.
Excellent. And I just want to shout out his wife, Janetta Bryan. I want to shout out his daughter and his son. Keydron Bryan he and his son are actually in the film. And Keydron has 3 songs on the soundtrack for the film we have coming out. I'm so proud of him. He's a teenager, a youth, who's a gift to us all, and he would not be a gift to us all if it wasn't for his mama and his daddy who created him. And so I just need to acknowledge that, and then also Chaplain Peter Jones, who is a Brooklynite like myself. Shout out to Brooklyn all day, every day. Peter is a chaplain. He's a dynamic community leader. He's been a voice in the differently disabled community for a very long time. He's also in the film because when we decided to put this film together, we said, y'all, we need to have black males of all types, including black males we often don't see because a lot of times we try to erase people, act like people don't exist. And so I just want to acknowledge Peter and the great work that you do in our community for all people, not just the disabled community, but all people. I respect you in so many different ways. And Reverend Dr. Darchie, Herbert Darchie Sr. is still on. He and I share so many things in common. One of them is our connection to Tupac Shakur. Some of y'all know I'm currently working on a book on Tupac Shakur. I interviewed Tupac many times, including when he was in prison. I sadly was in Vegas. Jonah, I was in Vegas when Tupac died. I was actually there in Vegas when Pac died, which was one of the saddest days of my life. And as fate would have it, y'all, June 16th would be his 53rd birthday this Sunday, which also happens to be Father's Day. And we know Tupac talked a lot about fatherhood or not having a father. Reverend Darchie, before we let you go, Reverend Darchie Sr., can you just comment on your relationship with Tupac really quickly so I can then turn to our next set of guests?
Yeah. He came to our church when he was about, 10, 11. Fanny, his mother, brought him and his sister Setua and her sister Gloria to the church. Fanny was Black Panther, and I was very close to the party. And so she brought them. And we watched him grow up. And, of course, when he became famous, he would always, when he come to New York, she would call me and say, hey, Pastor, go see Pop. He was always respectful and always, Pastor this, Pastor that.
Wow.
And when he was shot, remember 5 times.
The first time, yes, sir.
He was in a hospital. I visited him. In fact, he sent for me, and I visited him. Looked like to me he was almost gone then, and I prayed for him. I said, listen, son, God's going to raise you up, and you're going to be out of here, and we're going to have a father-son talk. And 30 minutes later, when I got to the church, it was a half an hour from Bellevue, where he was, to my church in Brooklyn. He was gone. Somebody the deacon met me at the church door. Hey, man, you heard the news, Pastor Tupac's gone, man. He said he left the hospital.
He sure did.
Well, I learned later that when I left, after we prayed for him, he came to realize that he was alone in the hospital. The people who put him there may be coming back. And so he called some of the brothers to come and to secure him.
That's right.
But the messages that I want to leave that he left with me. And one day we were sitting in prison. He was in Rikers Island. And he was always talking, writing. And he looked up at me one day and he said, Pastor, if I want to achieve something, I draw a picture, or find a picture, or write it, put it over my bed, and I will not sleep in the bed. I will sleep on the floor in the bathroom, and every day I would look at this picture that I drew, and I achieved it. I achieved the thing that I put over my bed. So I said, hey, Punk, man, I didn't know you were into metaphysics. He said, I don't know what you're talking about, but it works. And so the message that I give to young people in particular, because I said, hey, Pop, why don't you rap? And we travel together and let me rap. He never would agree to that. But the point is that he had stumbled upon a universal principle that if you fix your mind upon an objective and do the things that are necessary and meditate on it, that there's a universal principle.
Yes, sir.
That you will be drawn to it, or it will be drawn to you. A rendezvous is inevitable. So that's what he stumbled upon. And by putting this picture, fixing it in his mind, meditating, sitting there meditating. And the commitment was, I'm going to forego the comfort of life, of the bed, until I achieve what's on the wall. And so I think that at least that was one of the ingredients for his phenomenal success.
Wow.
I loved him, loved his family.
Yes, sir.
And set you on the whole family.
Yes, yes.
And again, I just got to keep saying thank you, Kevin. Thank you for all that you do and have done. And, yeah, I mean, even this program is a testimony to your concern, your compassion, your vision that you have exhibited across the years. As long as I've been knowing you, I've been knowing you a long, long time.
Yes, sir. You've known me since I was a youth. And Reverend Daughtry, again, all praises due to God. Y'all been listening to the Reverend Dr. Herbert Daughtry Sr., who is 93 years young, y'all, who's been doing his work, I believe, Reverend Daughtry, for at least 70 of those years as a pastor, as a leader, as an organizer. And I just appreciate you so much. He was just sharing his experiences with the late Tupac Shakur, who we both knew very well. The interview that I did in prison with Tupac was actually in Rikers Island that people always refer to, and you're absolutely right. There's many lessons we can learn as we try to figure out manhood and fatherhood from Tupac Shakur. Reverend Daughtry, I just want to thank you for joining us. I need to move to the next calls, and I want to acknowledge, I'm so glad that one of the first voices we heard this morning was an elder. Anyone who's over 65, 70, 80, 90 years old out there, all of y'all, but especially black men, can I just say thank you? Can I just say thank you? Can I just say thank you? Thank you for breathing into us. Some of us, like me, did not have a father figure. So it's people like Reverend Herbert Daughtry Sr., who I just would look at from afar. I would take lessons on how they moved, how they spoke, even how they dressed, as I try to figure out what is it to be a man? What is it to be a black man? I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge this Urban View morning show. The late, great Joe Madison, we just lost him a few months ago. He would be 75, y'all. Sam, thank you, my producer. Thank you for reminding me. Joe Madison, not only is Tupac Shakur's birthday on Sunday, June 16th, which is Father's Day, Joe Madison and Tupac Shakur share the same birthday. Joe Madison would have been 75, y'all. He would have been 75 years old. And you know that he used this platform, this same show that we're on right now that y'all listening to, Mr. Madison, for years, used this platform to talk about the same things we're talking about today. Fatherhood, manhood, various issues, the injustices that we see out there. If there's one news headline I want to share really quickly before I reintroduce everyone who's on hold right now, is that we just saw that the survivors of the Tulsa massacre, the bombing back in 1921, were just told they're not going to get anything by the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Meanwhile, when the Oklahoma City bombing happened in the mid-1990s, those families, those survivors got $50 million. I just want to leave that there for a second, y'all. You know what I mean? And what I also saw in the research that we were doing, the great team that I have here, Jonah in New York, Sam, our producer in Chicago, shout out to Daryl in D.C., our engineer, is that they're also making it possible for those folks who are survivors of the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, that their kids, the generations after, will be taken care of. And here we are 103 years since the Oklahoma City bombing. That's what it was, you know, and that black community, the famous Black Wall Street, was destroyed. And you have two elders who are still alive, including one sister who's 110 years old, y'all. And they're being told, the people who are descendants are, there's nothing for you. There's nothing for you. And so this is what we talk about on this show. We give you headlines, we give you news updates, but we also talk about the injustices that we need to continue to fight. And again, shout out to Reverend Dr. Herbert Daughtry Sr., 93 years old. His whole life has been what he said to us early in the show. We have been created by God to contribute. We've been created to contribute. I want to welcome again to the show Quentin Walcott, the Executive Director of Connect NYC. Quentin is right here in New York City. David Young, Director of Toledo Excel and Special Projects at the University of Toledo in Ohio. Kendrick Bryan, Pastor Kendrick Bryan, motivational speaker and host of a very important podcast y'all should check out called A Father's Perspective. Chaplain Peter Jones, one of our dynamic leaders also here in New York City, works in many spaces, including the spaces of folks who are differently able, disabled like himself. And we've just been joined by a brother, Ezekiel Hunt, who's a student at Prairie View A&M University, a leader, speaker, brilliant writer in his own right, one of our young brothers originally from California, who's actually here this summer in New York for a special program. Welcome, gentlemen. Just welcome. How are y'all feeling this morning?
Heavy hearted, man, but glad to be here.
Thank y'all. You know, let's just jump right in. And if I can, with all due respect, can I start with you, Brother Kendrick, and you, Brother Young, since y'all are, no one else has fathers, no one else has children. Q, you don't have any children. Ezekiel, you don't have any. You have a child?
Yeah, the relationship. Yep, I'm no longer in, but yeah.
I love that. Let's start with it. What does fatherhood mean to y'all? And Ezekiel, you can answer the question as well. What does fatherhood mean to y'all? Or what should it mean to y'all? What should it mean to people? What is your definition of fatherhood? Anyone can jump in, please.
Well, for me, when I think about fatherhood is really about covering, in one sense, not covering someone's faults or someone's wrongs when they're, out of the pocket. But I remember when my son Jelani was a baby, he was a fitful sleeper. And so during the night, he's going to throw his covers off. And I would wake up not being able to hear it, but I would wake up several times during the night and go in and cover him. And so what I was doing as a father is making sure that he stayed warm and making sure that he stayed secure. He was asleep, so he didn't understand that he had thrown his cover off.
Yes, sir.
But my job was to make sure that he was good. And in doing that, I was doing what God does for us. He makes sure we're good, even when we don't understand we're out of pocket, even when we don't understand that we're exposing ourselves to things that could harm us. I wanted to make sure when I covered Jelani, he didn't get a cold. He didn't get the sniffles. He didn't get sick, even though he didn't understand he was moving the wrong way. My job as a father was to make sure that he was good. And so we have to do that for our children, whether our biological children or, children that look to us as a father figure. That fatherhood piece is making sure they're good, making sure they're covered, making sure they're secure, and that they can always look to us to provide that.
Pastor Kendrick, you're a father as well. What does fatherhood mean to you? A biological father, pardon me. What does fatherhood mean to you?
Yeah, just staying in that same vein, Mr. Young just put so eloquently. I just want to add to it. Fatherhood to me is impeccable leadership. I mean, it's leadership, and not leadership where you carry charisma, not leadership where you're able to show placards on the wall, but it's really creating an example before the next generation, even for those who don't have children. It's creating a solid example before the ones who will look up on you. And just to make emphasis on Black fatherhood, me and my wife, we have friends from South Africa. And he said, when I'm in South Africa, I don't have to think about being Black. He said, I don't have to think about being Black. But in this essence, in this United States of America, we understand and know not only do we have to carry the mantle of leadership, an example, creating these habits that dictate a lifestyle that will be conducive to growth in every area of life. But we have to understand our complexion. And it just hit us in a different way when we understand we move with a courage, we move with a confidence, but it's different out the way we move here than what he illustrated and said, it's not even an afterthought about my skin color. It's only about what I present, my character, and what it produces. And so I think fatherhood at its root is being able to lead, being leadership, and just to add on to be that covering as well.
Thank you, Pastor Kendrick. Brian, Quentin, you and I share parallel stories about not having our fathers there, really. Can you talk about how that shaped your definition of fatherhood, please?
First of all, thanks, Kev, for being on the show, and to you brothers, very powerful brothers. Yeah, and I agree with David and Kendrick that, fatherhood.
Give me 1 second. I'm just told I got to take a break right now. Can you hold that thought? Are y'all good to hold on, and we're going to come right back? I just got to take a quick commercial break. I apologize for that.
Sure.
Pardon me. We're going to pick it up with Quentin Walcott in a second. I'll be right back. This is Kevin Powell, Urban View.
Hello, we have about 2 minutes until we come back from break. We're just checking in to see if all of you are able to stay for like a few minutes after the 8 o'clock hour, because once we come back from this segment, we're gonna get cut off in about like 2 minutes in, because we're gonna be finished with our hour one.
Yes.
No problem. Yeah.
All right, great. So
Yep.
awesome. So when we come back from break, just a heads up that we'll have like 2 to 3 minutes before we get cut off. So then we'll get back deeper into the conversation once we come back on the 8 o'clock hour. Quentin, when we come back from break, Kevin's gonna just address you to talk about your fatherhood experience for those 2 minutes, and then we'll come back for the 8 o'clock hour with everyone.
Sounds good.
Y'all are excellent. The boards are lighting. I can't see anyone right now. Hold on. Oh, there they are. Excellent. We're just getting warmed up, y'all. So thank y'all for your patience. We're gonna need
30 seconds.
We're gonna need to do this again when the film comes out, for real. This is, and we literally have people calling in nonstop and people on hold, just holding on because they want to talk. So we're just trying to get to. Sorry, we have to do these commercial breaks.
10 seconds, muting mics.
Late brother Tupac Shakur. We just have a couple minutes before we go to the break. We have a conversation happening all 3 hours today about black manhood, black fatherhood. Have dynamic voices on this call throughout these 3 hours. Quentin Walcott, you want to talk about fatherhood, please.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I wanted to just kind of underscore what Brother David and Kendrick mentioned. And I think it's important what Kendrick mentioned in terms of like being a Black father. I think that's very different than a typical form of fatherhood. And I would say the element that I want to add to that, and that being a father through a relationship of a 14-year-old girl, has really been challenging, to be challenging to say the least. And it's a beautiful complication, you know what I mean? I think fatherhood is that. It's I think, the dimension of being a Black fatherhood in this society is that we have to be a bit more, I think, hypervigilant. We have to, we have to teach a little bit differently. We have to, so leadership is important, definitely. But I would say that the type of leadership is like showing the vulnerabilities, showing the growth, the work in progress, showing all of these different aspects. Because a lot of times it's hard to explain to our kids what just happened to maybe all of us or us as fathers individually over the course of a day. So I think there's different conversations that we must have and to explain, and to also say that, we want to be in control in a loving way. We want to protect in a loving way, and we want to protect as we are also protected by, the women in our lives, our partners in our lives. And so I think, fatherhood is definitely an unconditional love and relationship and responsibility.
Let's pick that up. Quentin, let's pick that up on the other side of the break. We're just talking about fatherhood and manhood today. We're going to come back so we can extend this. We'll be back in a second. This is Hey, y'all. So I apologize for it being pushed back a little bit. So however long y'all could stay, please, you're welcome to stay as long as possible. Because I'm going to get to everyone, and we're going to really dive into this and break some stuff down. The first hour, we only had a couple folks on, and so the Dohertys at first, I know, was very early, and most of y'all coming in on now. So this is where we got to get through this hour. And so we have breaks periodically, but now that that we have a stretch that we can really talk when we come back. So if you could stay for 20 minutes, God bless y'all, and I would appreciate it. If you need to go, just let us know. We would understand. So just let us know. Yeah. Is that cool?
Yes, sir.
Cool. And Ezekiel and Peter, I'm going to come back to you. Quinn, I want you to finish your point, then I'm going to come to Ezekiel and Peter, and then we're going to just make it round robin. We could just jump in because I want to talk about some things that Quentin brought up about vulnerability and men expressing themselves, including fathers and grown men, and how important it is to kind of model
90 seconds
being vulnerable. I think it was you, Pastor Kendrick, who said impeccable leadership. There's certain things here that I love that y'all are saying that I want to kind of break down a little bit, if that's cool. I'm just taking notes as y'all are speaking. Hey, Brother Byron.
What's
Good
up?
morning, Brother Byron. Can you hear us?
Peace. What's going on? I was muted. What's
Good
going
to
on?
see you, brother. Good morning to you. Thank you
What's
so
going
much.
on, B?
All right, what's happening, Q?
1 minute. Kevin, is it okay to come back from break with Color Him Father?
Yes. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Y'all can still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just want y'all to know that I'm listening very closely the whole time, but if you ever see me looking down,
30
it's
seconds.
just me and the producers texting or I'm writing notes for things y'all are saying, so don't think I'm not paying attention. I'm always paying attention.
$20 seconds, muting mics.
There's a man at my house, he's so big and strong. He goes to
More
work
from
each
Kevin
day,
Powell
stays
on
all day
Urban View
long.
Mornings.
He comes home each night looking tired and beat. He sits down at the dinner
Morning,
table.
good morning,
and
good
has
morning,
a
good
bite
morning.
to
Welcome
eat.
back. Urban View Mornings. This is Kevin Powell. Y'all are listening to a range of music this morning that is dedicated to fathers. That's called Call Him Father by the Winstons. That's all the way back to the 1960s, y'all. When we went to the break, we were listening to our brother Tupac Shakur. Call Him Father. That song, if you listen to the lyrics closely, is actually about a stepfather, quote unquote, a man who stepped in and raised kids when they didn't have their biological father there. Calling Him Father by the Winstons. I'm Kevin Powell. We are talking for 3 hours today about fatherhood, manhood. I'm so excited about the range of guests that we have on. About 25 brothers from around the country, 5 generations, including our brother, Reverend Dr. Herbert Darty Sr., who just turned 93 years young this year, who started us off with his son, Herb Jr., talking about fatherhood and manhood and spirituality. I want to welcome back to the show Quentin Walcott, Executive Director of Connect NYC, David Young, Director of Toledo Excel and Special Projects at the University of Toledo in Ohio, Pastor Kendrick Bryan, who's a motivational speaker and host of a great podcast y'all need to check out called Father's Perspective. Chaplain Peter Jones is one of our dynamic leaders here in New York City. My brother Ezekiel Hunt, writer, orator, originally from California, a student at Prairie View A&M University, and actually doing a very important study program this summer at an Ivy League school here on the East Coast. And want to welcome Byron Hurt, who's a documentary filmmaker, an award-winning, multiple documentary filmmaker. I believe is it 11 or 12 documentary films, Byron, at this point? Is it 11, 12 documentary films?
Something like that total, yeah, between features and shorts, yes.
And, you know, I met Byron, the first documentary film that I met him around was when he was doing something around Black manhood way back in the 1990s. And he's been someone who's been consistent in telling our stories. And just know that name, Byron Hurt, very, very important filmmaker. And I would even add, humbly, an influence on how we have come to do this documentary about Black manhood that he and all these other brothers that are in this coming out this fall when we free the world. So I just want to thank y'all. Quentin, we were finishing up a thought about fatherhood. Men being vulnerable. It makes me think about mental health in Black men and how we define manhood. Quentin, Ezekiel, Peter, Byron, please jump in. Let's talk about it. Kendrick, David, you know, what does it mean to be a Black man, and what do we need to hold on to from past traditions, and what do we need to think about in this 21st century? All of us are of the hip hop era that's on this call right now, different generations of it, but hip hop is 50, means all of us have been touched by hip hop in some kind of way. What does Black manhood need to look like now, especially when you think about Pastor Kendrick's point about it's very different to be a Black father. It's very different to be a Black man than just a father, just a man in the context of America. Anyone, please?
Okay.
Not all at the same time.
I'll just add on to that. I think just underscoring that piece around being a Black father, and that, you know, ever since I was a child, man, you know, similar to you, being raised by a single mom, raising 2 Black boys in New York City, 2 things I always thought about, and people always thought that I was thinking about this way too young. I thought about racism and sexism, and just my mother's experience day to day, walking around, holding our hands, navigating New York City as a Black woman, but underscoring the woman and as a Black woman, right? The fact of being Black. So we saw that very young and early. So that just definitely shaped who I am as a man. And then, like I mentioned, you know, being a stepfather to a young daughter through a relationship who's now 14 years old and navigating all of that. So I just want to underscore what other brothers were saying, is that but that race thing, I think, is so important, and it shapes the way we move. So I think it makes it important that we show and we explain and we talk about our experiences as we are protecting and providing, but looking beyond just the provider and the protector, as we always mention around what is a man or what is a father, but getting into the complexities of the other roles and responsibilities and how they shape shift and how we are learning in the process. So not only are we leaders, we're also students and learning from the young people and the women in our lives and the communities that we live in.
Peter, Ezekiel, Byron, in that order, please. Yep.
Speaking on vulnerability, I just want to start by giving a shout out to one of my fallen brothers, Marion Scott Lewis. I took him to the birth of his first child, and he was killed not long after that.
Wow. How old was he? How old was he?
22. He was 22.
Wow.
And he was killed on the week of Father's Day. That's another child growing up without their father. That's another mother shouldering that burden. So when I think about vulnerability, I think for Black men in the community at large, the greatest need of a father is having insight into this frustration that we face with. You know, we've all heard about a mother's intuition, but I think that absolves us men of some responsibility. Especially for Black men, we need father's intuition. For like Brother Kendrick said, how to move in this world. You know, we look at our existence in the United States. Homicide is the #1 cause of death for Black men between the age of 15 and 34. We're 13% of the population, but make up 37% of the incarcerated population. So I look at the landscape we in, and there's a struggle just to change aspects of our environment. I'm in New York for the first time, and I can't help but think of Dr. Amos Wilson, who said we're like a rat running in a maze. Who said that we are the Pavlovian dog. We are the people being caged and experimented on with shock collars and conditioning. And our reactions, especially as juveniles, all the way up to adults, is used as evidence for our entire existence. But we have to start asking ourselves, who created this environment? And that's what we need fathers for, I think, to let sons know what that landscape is, what the dynamics and expectations are. I think that I'm not a father yet, but I think that a father needs to have elevated his state of consciousness to a point where not only his son, but the sons of the community can benefit from his wisdom and knowledge. So just hearing the brother speak today, like, inspires me moving forward, you know, as I think about possibly becoming a father myself. And it also gives me something to talk about with my peers that are fathers, you know, and so I'm just enjoying this conversation.
Thank you. Ezekiel Hunt is a great writer, speaker, a student at Prairie View A&M University in Texas, the great Prairie View A&M University. Peter, Byron, please jump in. We're talking about fatherhood. We're talking about manhood, how y'all define it, what it means to y'all in these times.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Good morning. As I'm listening to everybody talk, this conversation has a very different meaning for me. As a young man, as somebody who is in the disability, area. I'm 35 years old. I'll be 36 in a couple of months. And growing up without my father, never knew who my father was.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It takes a father to turn a boy into a man. And so the father is the head of the house. So growing up, having to raise myself and having to navigate through this life, not only as a Black man, but as somebody who's disabled, and I don't have my father. So this conversation is much needed. And 35 years later, I have been on a search trying to find my father. And I'm glad to say that I am almost near that search because I found who my father was. Sadly to say, he's not here.
Yeah.
But it gives me comfort 35 years later, even though he's not here. But it gives me comfort knowing that this is the man who is responsible for me. So as we talk about fatherhood, it's very important in today's society. As it has been said earlier this morning, I am a chaplain for the police department, and I am a liaison, and I go to these scenes. And matter of fact, last week, right here in the heart of Brooklyn, we had a young man. I believe he was like 14 years old. He was in the projects over here, and he was playing with his cousin, playing with a gun, and he shot his cousin dead.
Wow.
And so as we look at things like this, it shows us that we have work to do.
Yeah.
You can have two parents, you can have a mother and a father, and your mother can love you, she can do all that she can for you. But as a man, it's the father's job and responsibility to train up that child and teach him and show him everything he needs to know. Because I don't care how much you love your mother and you know she loves you, there are certain things she can't teach you. So as we look at the absence of fathers in the city and all over the country, fathers play a very, you know, important role in the life of their child. So I'm glad to be here, you know, in this conversation, and it's a much needed, conversation that we should have. So to see all you brothers here, it really means a lot. And this is the first time that we're meeting, but it won't be the last. But it's a much needed, topic to have. Thank you.
Byron, before you jump in, let me just say this. Peter Jones, thank you so much for what you said. This work that we're doing, all the brothers that are here today in these 3 hours are in the film called When We Free the World. That'll be out in the fall. This film wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the work of people like Byron Hurt. I'm just going to say that, who planted seeds of what we can do with film. And I just want to acknowledge that, Byron, you're one of our legendary, great filmmakers, documentary filmmakers, and I so appreciate you all, what you've been doing. Peter, you had me choked up. 10 years ago, y'all, I made my first trip to Africa. 10 or 11 years ago, I made my first trip to Africa. They said, welcome home. I started crying. But what I realized, I still didn't know what had happened to my father. I found out 10 years after he died that he was dead. I only saw him 3 times until I was 8 years old. He and my mom were never married. Same story as Quentin Walcott, single mother, raised me by herself. God bless single black mothers. God bless black mothers, period, married, single, and whatever. Just shout out to black women, period. I went to South Carolina. I found my father through the help of a genealogist. I found his gravesite. I got to his gravesite. I fell to my knees in South Carolina. I started crying, and I forgave him at his gravesite. I just want to put that out there. Byron?
I just want to follow up on that too. Showing love to black women and black mothers out there. I think that when we talk about black fathers, it's a necessary compliment to mothers, because so many times, like, we see black mothers having to be everything at once. And I think Brother Peter touched on it. Like, there's things that as black men that we experience that we have unique insight on, that we are gonna need to be that GPS, that direction for the next generation coming up.
Wow. Byron, you had your father in your life. One of my favorite quotes from the film is that you said that your father was there. You said that he was not a perfect man, but he was a good man. Those words stuck with me. You had a father, you're a father. Can you talk about what fatherhood and manhood mean to you now at this stage of your life?
Well, good morning. Fatherhood is a really big part of my identity. I have one child. I have one daughter who's about to turn 15 years old. And, I have the great benefit of having had not only just my own biological father in my life until I was about 37 years old, but I also had 5 uncles on both sides of my family who were also fathers. I also had a grandfather who was a very kind and loving and gentle and vulnerable and intelligent father to all of his children. So throughout my entire life, I've had these examples of really strong, powerful, intelligent, present fathers in my life. And that really made a difference. It really mattered to me. When I was about 20 years old, 20, 21 years old, something around that age, may have been 19, I was living in Boston, and I got a new job that was outside of Boston in Quincy, Massachusetts. And I needed a car. And I told my father I needed a car to, get to and from work every day. And my father went out and he bought me like this old red Mustang. And I was very grateful that he would do something like that for me. And I came home to New York to pick up the car on Long Island. And my pops kept warning me to take the car out, to drive the car, test it out, make sure that everything was right with the engine, everything was working properly. And I didn't listen to him. I was out hanging out the whole weekend. out at clubs till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, hanging out with my man, Chad Robinson. And the day was time for me to go back to Boston. I got in the car. It was a huge torrential downpour. I drove the car around the corner with my man in the passenger seat, and the car cut out right around the corner from my house. I called my father. I told him what was going on. Told him that the car wouldn't start. My father walked around the corner in the pouring rain. He had on a trench coat and he had on a rain hat. And he lifted the hood and he figured out how to start the car for me. I was so embarrassed. I was embarrassed that he had warned me, told me to drive the car around, get used to it. And I apologized to him. And he said, Byron, he said, the day that you were born, I knew that I was committed to you.
Wow.
That just hit me so hard.
It just hit me hard. Wow.
The day that you were born, I knew that I was committed to you. And I was there. My father took his very last breath, and I will remember that man until I take my very last breath.
Wow. You're listening to Urban View Mornings. This is Kevin Powell. We're talking about Black fatherhood, Black manhood. David, your father didn't have a father in his life, like me, like Peter, like Quentin. Kendrick, was your father in your life?
Yes.
God bless him. Zeke, was your father in your life?
Yes, my father was there and powerful representative, I think, for educating oneself, for being independent. Absolutely.
David, you said you don't know how your father figured out how to be a father when he didn't have a father. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, my father didn't have a father in his life. And then his father, that he didn't really have any much or if any contact with passed when my father was 11 years old. He had a grandfather, he had some other people that were there, but being that day-to-day father, he didn't have. My grandmother was incredible, but she wasn't a father. And so when I look at what he modeled for us, when I look at the type of man that he was, that's one of the things that I think about all the time. How did he understand how to not just be a father, but a superhero type father?
Wow.
Where did that come from? I didn't see missteps. I saw faithful husband. I saw godly man that taught us the same. Someone that was always there. Someone that was not afraid to discipline, but also was not afraid to love and embrace and nurture. The only credit I can give to it is that God, we never had a actual conversation where I asked him that question. I wish I would have. But I believe, because I know he was a man of prayer, that at some point he had to talk to God about, how do I do this?
How do I do this? How do I do this? That's a question we need to ask as Black men. How do I do this?
Hey, Kev, if I could say something, man.
Yes.
Although I didn't have my father around like since I was 2 or 3 years old, and in my work with fathers over the years, one thing I would always say, and I'm thinking about Brother Peter around having fathers around and the lessons that they teach us. And one of the things about having an absent father, and this is all around the type of father that you had, right? And so there's a lot of lessons you don't learn because they're not around, and some of those lessons are gems. You know what I'm saying? If it's a unhealthy relationship or attitudes towards women or girls or even kids, you know what I mean? So in a lot of ways, I was lacking, but in some ways, I had the opportunity not to learn how to be firsthand, how to be abusive in relationships and things like that. And, one of the things about this pledge that we're doing this afternoon at 12 is that it's about uplifting the fathers who got it together. You know what I'm saying? And it's also giving the fathers who need to work and do some work around, their attitudes and belief systems. And that's what this Father's Day pledge is about. Yeah, I'm a stepfather in a relationship, but I'm also that son, you know what I mean? That kid that witnessed things and didn't witness things growing up. So that's why the pledge is so important around giving, fathers who are, in that struggle, in that progress of learning how to be better fathers or more engaged fathers, and also to learn from the fathers who got it together. What worked for you, what didn't work for you. So I think that's important to say. And I did have some men in my life. My grandfather, he was the probably most consistent one, married, for 50, 60 years almost, but other uncles and things like that. So I learned a little bit from each of them, right? I believe in my work, menus of manhood, menus of masculinity. I take from Brother Zeke, I take from Brother Kendrick, I take a lot from Byron, I take a lot from you, Kev, around how to shape myself as a man and that further extension into fatherhood. So I think that's important too, is that we're never without lessons, regardless of presence or not.
Brother Kendrick, as you're listening to this, and you're to me one of our dynamic fathers that I've met in my life, what have you been feeling listening to all these brothers speak here since you spoke earlier about
It's just been it's been so powerful just to take it all in. As you said, I did have my father in my life, different dynamic, because my father was a army. He was in the army. He was an army soldier.
Thank him for his service, and thank you for your service, by the way. You just retired, I believe. Is that right?
I did retire. Thank you. And he was he was in the army, and so I was considered an army brat. But what he did bring to the table was strength. He brought discipline. He brought work ethic. I was able to see it. I was able to feel it. I was able to hear it at the round tables. And so a great example that he brought into my life. But one thing that my father did not bring, and I think that is so very important and pertinent as we deal in this vein of fatherhood, is how to now, because I'm at this stage with a 20-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son.
Yes, sir.
Who are very well identifying with the problems of the world. How do we then lead them while we have our own weaknesses?
Wow.
How don't we relinquish the position of authority while trying to help them navigate the importance of battling things that we cannot see? This is what my father did not teach me. I got the strength part, I got the discipline part, I got the work ethic part. And now I'm thinking about the Apostle Paul in the Bible dealing with a thorn. This thing that comes to beat up on the one that is put in position to be an example and to lead.
Yes.
So when I sit down with my son, who is experiencing these things that we cannot see, I have to share with him how to fight without relinquishing the fight. If you can understand that, I have to share with him not to expose my own, but to identify with his, while still being in his eyes strong enough or even weak enough to lead. And I think that's a big place where we have to, there's all kind of negative entities around us because of our situation, the geographical location of our being. But there's these things that we have to take on, and still don't look at that weakness as a problem, but look at it as a place of humility where we lean on, and for me, it's leaning on faith. And when I'm weak, this is what I tell my children: when you are weak, then God said he will be your strength. And so it's staying in position of authority, leading, and while leading, keeping the fight in you to be able to teach them how to fight the fight that they have to fight as well.
Y'all, this is Urban View Mornings. I'm Kevin Powell. As y'all know, I'm on Wednesdays and Thursdays, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. We're doing a special edition today, all 3 hours, talking about black fatherhood, black manhood. All 20 some odd brothers who are on the show today through these 3 hours are in a documentary film we have coming out in the fall called When We Free the World. It's 70 black male voices in the film, 5 generations from teenagers to 90-something, including our Reverend Dr. Herbert Dartrey Sr., who started the show off this morning, talking about these issues of fatherhood and manhood. I will honest with y'all, I've been crying up in this piece listening to these brothers, choked up. On this call this hour, we have Quentin Walcott, Executive Director of Connect NYC, David Young from Director of Toledo Excel out of the University of Toledo, Ohio, Pastor Kendrick Bryan, who was just speaking, motivational speaker and host of an important podcast called Father's Perspective, Chaplain Peter Jones, one of our great leaders, community leaders here in New York City. Shout out to the borough of Brooklyn, where he's based just like me. He's also a leader in the community around disabled rights issues. We have on the line Byron Hurt as well, award-winning documentary filmmaker. And I'll say it again, the seeds of the work that he's done is the reason why the film we have coming out in the fall exists. I want to always acknowledge Byron and people like him who made it possible for me to exist. And we have Holding getting ready to come on in a second. Keith Masco, actor, producer, and the founder of the Triggered Project, which deals with a lot with mental health, y'all. And Dr. Ludley Howard, who's a psychologist in Maryland. When we come back from the break, Jonah and Sam and Daryl, who work with me, I want to bring in this conversation around mental health. I see you, Dr. Jamal Mazik, who's out in California. This is a powerful conversation. We have the boards lighting up. Fellas, we're going to take a few calls here and there. Please continue to hold on. But this is an important call, and I hope that what the brothers are saying, Kendrick and everyone else, is touching your heart, your soul, and your mind as we think about how we define manhood and fatherhood in the 21st century. We'll be back in a second. Urban View Mornings.
Close your eyes.
Brother Keith, what's going on, my man?
More from Urban View Mornings after
Hey,
this.
what's up? Good morning, brothers. Good
On
morning, good morning,
Sirius
good morning,
XM
y'all.
Urban View.
Peace, brother. Peace.
Peace. We finally
Peace,
get to do something
come on.
together, man.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful boy.
Hey, everyone. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
I know Kendrick stepped away. Y'all, thank y'all so much. Y'all got me over here crying up a storm. I've been like, man, this has been powerful in healing for me just to hear y'all speaking. Just thank y'all so much. So I can imagine how this is affecting the listeners out there, around the country. Just thank y'all for taking the time. I know y'all are busy. I know this is a morning that people got to get ready for work and things like that. But I think this is going to have a great impact, and I really appreciate y'all taking the time. Thank y'all so much.
Byron Hurt, you got me, man.
Man, brother, me too. Peter, Byron, all of y'all. Hell, I'm just like, man. Jamal, good morning. Seconds. Good morning, brother Jamal.
Morning at
Good
5.
to see you. Jamal's in San Diego, y'all. Jamal's in
wow.
San Diego.
Wow.
Yeah, appreciate y'all.
Hence the coffee.
It's like 4 o'clock in the morning out there, huh?
Yeah, it's about 5:30.
And just as a reminder, when we're going to a break, please just wait until the music has faded out before unmuting.
Okay.
Apologies, Kendrick. Your
Otherwise,
Pastor Brian.
Let's do Jermaine Jackson's Daddy's Home. Yeah. I can't wait till this movie comes out, y'all, so we can have these kind of conversations in public around the country with brothers and all kinds of folks. Because it's just, it's rich. You very rarely hear black men coming together talking about these kind of things. This is powerful. It's just powerful.
30 seconds.
30 seconds, y'all. We're coming right back. I forgot what music we said. What did we say? Jermaine. Okay.
10 seconds, muting mics.
Yeah.
footsteps of the late, great Joe Madison, who would have been 75 this Sunday, June 16th, which also happens to be Tupac Shakur's 53rd birthday, which also is Father's Day, which is why we're doing this conversation today. 3 hours with black men of all different identities across 5 generations, about fatherhood, about manhood. And I've been curating this little playlist, y'all, with Luther Vandross and Jermaine Jackson just doing Daddy's Home just now. Tupac Shakur's Letter to My Unborn, Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder. And we got a whole bunch of other stuff that I was just pulling. Dance with My Father by Luther Vandross, which is one of my favorite songs. Love, love, love Luther Vandross forever. I want to reintroduce the guest that we have on right now. Thank y'all for holding on. The gentleman, I can tell y'all, your commentary these first 90 minutes or so have really touched people's hearts. We got folks calling from all over the country, and we're going to try to get to some of the callers. But the callers, please bear with us. Thank you for your patience. It's just really important to me. The 20 some odd men that are on this call today, our guests through these 3 hours, are a part of the 70 black males who are in a film that we have coming out in the fall called When We Free the World. Again, it's 5 generations of black males between teenagers and 90-something, including the Reverend Herbert Daughtry Sr., who's 93 years old and started us off this morning. I'm just moved by the honesty, the vulnerability of what we're talking about. And gentlemen, if I may, he's been holding for a long time. The brother called yesterday. His name is Dr. Ludley Howard. He's a psychologist out of the great state of Maryland. Dr. Howard, I just want to talk about why it's important for us as black men, especially when I just was listening to a brother Kendrick. Kendrick, thank you for your honesty, just about, being a father, but also being honest about our own challenges as men. Mental health, Dr. Howard, Dr. Ludley Howard, and black manhood. What do we need to do? What do we need to be thinking about, please?
Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for having me on your show. First of all, I'm not a doctor, though. I'm
sorry. Pardon me. You're a licensed social worker. You said that yesterday. I apologize.
Oh, no problem. No problem. But let me just say this. I am so blessed to have had a father in my life.
Yes, sir.
And just from listening to the stories up to this point, it brings back such great memories of the relationship that I had with my father, and how unfortunately many of my brothers haven't experienced that same type of joy, frustrations at times, but just having to know that he's present in our lives. So I just wanted to commend you, brothers, for allowing yourselves to be vulnerable. Just listening to you emphasizes the fact that I'm in the right field in terms of working with our young men, our adults, in terms of just helping us as brothers be able to identify our emotions. And as I was saying yesterday, Kevin, we have a group that's called Does the Apple Fall Far from the Tree, in which we talk, what does it mean as black men to have fathers either present or not present in our lives? How has that experience influenced us as the men we are today, the type of partners, the type of husbands we are, how we relate to our own children if we have them, and how do we deal with that? How do we begin to come to terms with that? And we try to create a forum that's safe, that's led by trained African-American men in the field who can provide that support and guidance as we truly grapple with those experiences.
Wow, Ludley Howard, thank you so much for sharing. And as I said, I want to make sure you come on a regular basis, because we're always going to be talking about mental health. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also say to our guests and the listeners out there around the country, June is also Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. In addition to Black Music Month, in addition to Pride, in addition to Caribbean American Heritage Month, June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And as one of our guests that's coming up, Steve Jackson, says in the film, men got to talk. Black men got to talk. Men got to talk. Men got to talk. Thank you, Ludley Howard. Appreciate you. Let me reintroduce the panel that we have on right now. And again, gentlemen, if you have to split at any time, it's fine. We're not trying to hold you all. We know everyone's busy, but thank y'all for being here. We have on right now Kendrick Bryan, who's a motivational speaker and a host of A Father's Perspective podcast. Please check out that podcast. It's called A Father's Perspective. We have on Quentin Walcott, who's executive director of Connect NYC. And if y'all can, am I right, Quentin? If you just nod your head, they can go right to connectnyc.org. VENMO.org, and find out about the Father's Day pledge that is happening today, later today, in New York City and around the country. Am I right? Am I right?
Yes.
That's important. And they've been doing that for many years. So please check out connectnyc.org. We have also on the call Chaplain Peter Jones, who's a community leader here in New York City, chaplain to the New York City Police Department, but also a dynamic community leader in many spaces, many issues, and, including disability rights. And he talked about being, like me, fatherless, but also being fatherless and disabled growing up as a boy. And I want to just thank you, Peter, for your testimony. That was very powerful. Byron Hurt, award-winning filmmaker, one of our best filmmakers. We talk a lot about our pioneering filmmakers who are elders to us, like Stanley Nelson. We got to give acknowledgement to people like him and Sam Pollard. But I want to acknowledge people of our generation who are younger now, like Byron Hurt, who are doing the work. He has about a dozen documentary films. Please check him out, including one of the most recent ones is Hazing. What's the other one that's coming out, or has about your family as well, Byron? The title.
Lee and Liza's Family Tree.
Leah and Liza's Family Tree. So check out Hazing and Leah and Liza's Family Tree. That's Byron Hurt, and that's behurt.org is your website. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, cool. And then David Young, my Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity brother, director of Toledo Excel. Byron's a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Got to shout out to Omegas as well. David is director of Toledo Excel, an amazing program that works with young people, helps them through high school, helps folks in college level. He's in University of Toledo, and then a living example of someone that I've seen who has done amazing work with generations of young people. We have on the call my brother Keith Maskell, the Triggered Project. Keith is an actor, producer, founder of the Triggered Project. Keith, I gotta tell you, man, all of y'all are dope in the film. You know what I'm saying? And Keith also has roots in Barbados, which is my spiritual home. Shout out to Barbados. Shout out to Quentin as well. Q as well. I forgot about that. And
that's my cousin, man. That's my cousin.
That's your And anyone from South Carolina who's Geechee Gullah like me and my family know that there was a lot of back and forth between South Carolina and Barbados. So that's why I think Barbados especially resonates with me as a place that I love to visit. And then we have my brother who I love, Dr. Jamal Mazik, who is a expert on inclusion and equity. And one of the most powerful scenes in this film that's coming that we have all these brothers in. There's a split screen with Jamal and his father just talking about, their lives together. And Jamal can get into that in a bit. But I just want to thank you all, Jamal, for being up early from California. And let me tell y'all, this is how Pastor Kendrick and anyone who understands what I'm saying about God, Jamal, one of Jamal's best friends as a child was my wife, who Jamal's a good friend of mine as an adult. He and my wife grew up together. We had no idea of the connection. God is good, is all I got to say. We're talking about Black fatherhood, Black manhood. Lemuel in Florida grew up without a father. This has been sticking out to me. Can we just get to that call on line 5 real quick? Because I want to hear, am I pronouncing it right? Is it Lemuel or Lemuel?
Yes, sir. It's Lemuel.
Okay, you said you wanted to say something really quickly about growing up without a father, please.
Yeah. The one gentleman say that you had on say that he wondered how his father was a father without having a father, and I kind of grew up that way. I have 2 sons. I have a 40-year-old son, 41, a 28, then I have a 25-year-old daughter. And my father wasn't in my life, but what it did for me is it taught me what not to do.
Wow.
So my father lived probably less than 6 minutes from me, but he wasn't involved in my life. So luckily I had a strong grandfather and some uncles to fill in and help my mom out. But it taught me every day what it was to not have a father. So I made a pact with myself that if I ever became a father, that my kids wouldn't look at me that way.
Lemmy, can I ask you a question? Because I had what I called a fatherhood hole. It hurt me not to have a father. It hurt me to go to school every year and make up a new name for my father. When they would say, what's your mama's name? What's your daddy's name? I would just lie and pick a name from a TV character, to be honest with y'all. You know what I mean? Did it hurt not having a father?
It did. And you know what's crazy? So my father's name is Sidney Blow. And he's around now. I mean, we have a relationship now, but we didn't as a kid. So I kind of did the same thing. I didn't lie. I just told him my daddy's name was Sidney Poitier. He was my favorite actor. He was my favorite actor. And my dad's name was Sidney, so I would just say my dad was Sidney Poitier.
That's the black male imagination at work.
But I just want to thank you, man. This show is awesome today.
Thank you,
all
brother.
of your guests, man, have really enlightened me. But but yes, it gave me, by not having a father, it made me the father I am today. I'm very involved in all of my kids' life. All of my grandkids, they call me the world's best grandfather. So I'm actually picking two of my grandkids up right now, about to drop them off to school. Luckily, I work for myself, so I can do that from time to time. But by his absence, it made me present.
Can I ask you a second question? You said you have a relationship with your father. Did you forgive your father? Is it important for us to forgive our fathers, those of us who may have been hurt by our fathers?
Yes.
Why?
When I got married really early. I got married at 24 years old.
Yes,
and
sir.
At the time, my wife, she had a son. He was 8. And my mom told me, she said, well, how are you going to be a dad if you don't have a relationship with your dad? And so I forgave him.
Wow. Your wife challenged you on that. Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So I forgave him, and we moved on. And like I said, he's a good granddad. I give him credit to that. He does good by all of his grandkids, but I guess he was still growing himself at that time.
Did you ever did you ever talk with your father? And I want to say this to folks out there. Anyone here on the panel, have you had a conversation with your father, like, what were you going through when you were raising me, or when you weren't there? I mean, have any of y'all talked about this with anyone? I'm just curious. Anyone?
I have. I mean, I've had conversations with my father. I mean, my father was present, but my father was not perfect by any means. You know what I mean? And so, one of the things I'm really, really happy about is just being on this call with this patchwork of brothers, many of whom I don't know, who have these different experiences with fathers and fatherhood. And, for me, there were a few moments where I had to confront my father about certain things that he did that were that had an impact on me, negative impact on me, right? My father, grew up without his father being fully present. I mean, he described his father as being neglectful, right?
Wow.
So my father had to overcome a lot of things himself. He had his own traumas that he had to deal with and had to face and had to work hard to overcome. And so that had an impact on me. So, my father, he battled with alcohol addiction, during the period of his life. There were times where he didn't demonstrate a tremendous amount of vulnerability at all times. His way of conveying love to me and my sister and to my mother was by working hard, by being a provider and making sure that we had what we needed. But the actual emotional display of love was not always there. And he also witnessed, physical violence, as a young boy growing up. And so for me, having, like being able to have those conversations with him as an older person who could relate to him as a man and hear about his own traumas that he lived through and experienced really helped me to put his life into context, right? And his fatherhood into context. That was really important to me because it humanized him. Because I think that sometimes when you do have a father, you look at them as being these superhuman beings, but they're not. They're vulnerable Black men just like we are, right? And they have to live and exist in this world that's racist and white supremacist and discriminatory and in a world in which we are vulnerable to violence and in all kinds of ways. And so for me, it was great to see the evolution of my father, see how he had grown, right? See how he dealt with all of those challenges in his life and overcame them. That was just as important to me to see that, the growth, the transformation, the evolution into becoming the man that he was until he was in his, early 60s, right? Because that helped inform me in terms of what's possible for me. And it also let me know that in terms of all of the traumas that my father had and experienced, I had to break those traumas. I had to break those cycles, and I had to become better for my daughter than my father was for me, because my father had to grow to become better than his father. So it's all about growing and pushing the ball forward to become as human and as vulnerable and as present and loving and emotionally there for our children.
We got to take a break in a second. That was Byron Hurt, award-winning filmmaker that we were listening to. When we come back, we're going to introduce all the folks all over again. Byron, you said you were there when your father took his last breath. Do you remember the last thing you said to your father?
I told him that I loved him. It was a really very, very difficult moment, to watch my father leave this earth in the physical realm. We were surrounding his bedside, my mother, my sister, and my wife Kenya, and it was probably one of the most difficult and challenging days in my life. And I'll never forget the day after. I said to myself, I don't have a father anymore.
Y'all are listening to Urban View Mornings with Kevin Powell. We're having a special 3 hours about fatherhood, about manhood through the lens of black men. We have some powerful, powerful men on this call today. About 20 some odd brothers who are in a film we have coming out in the fall called When We Freed the World. It's 5 generations of black males, all different identities, between 20 teenagers and 90 something years old in this documentary film and also on this call. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back in a second. Brothers, if you can hold on for a few minutes, please do. We got Keith that's joined us. Jamal has joined us. I see you, Jelani. Shout out to Jelani. Y'all have joined us. And what's beautiful about this, you're right, Byron, this is an intentional patchwork of brothers, because sometimes it's good for us brothers who know each other to come together, but sometimes it's good to hear brothers from all over the country, different perspectives. And I can tell y'all what y'all saying is impacting people, because we got so many callers. I'm Kevin Powell, Sirius XM Urban. Hey, brothers, y'all good? Y'all still good?
Yes, sir.
Just jump in. I don't want to, if you have something to say, just jump in, please. I want to get to Keith, Jamal, and Jelani to make some opening statements, but just jump in from there. I'm going to take a few calls, and I don't know what it is, y'all. I'm just like hella emotional listening to y'all this morning. It's beautiful, man. You know, it's just beautiful. You know, I wish I had this when I was a youth, straight up, these kind of conversations. You know what I mean?
Son.
Hey, Kev, if I could just just say where the location and all that stuff is.
Yes, please. Anytime, Q. Anytime. And Byron, please tell folks where they can watch it. Is it PBS?
No, it's Prime Video. Prime Video is
on Prime Video.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I meant to say that, but I didn't want to
Oh no, this is what it's for, brother. Please, if Keith, say your project. Byron, anyone who has a project, as Kendrick, repeat where people can hear your podcast at. Whatever y'all need to share, please share. This is what it's for. Please. Y'all are brilliant, man. I love us. I just gotta say, y'all are brilliant. God bless y'all, man.
Yeah, Keith, man, I was in Boston. I forgot to look you up, bro, but I'll be out there in 2 weekends.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, I'll be here. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Son, you got my baby with you?
What? How many minutes do we actually have?
When we get back from break, we'll have
Is this muted?
8 minutes. One minute.
Hey, brother Ezekiel, throw your math in the chat. We could connect while you're out here in New York.
For sure. Gotcha.
"20 seconds muting mics."
About 20 some odd brothers on this call across 5 generations, just like the film that all these brothers are appearing that's coming in the fall that I'm the director of called When We Free the World. It's a documentary about how we define manhood, how we define fatherhood, or how we need to redefine both. And I think we're getting a lot of answers today from these brilliant brothers. I want to mention all the brothers who've been on or are now. This morning to start the show off, we had the Reverend Dr. Herbert Dartrey Sr., 93-year-old elder who broke it down about spirituality and how it needs to permeate our definitions of fatherhood and manhood. The quote he said that I love was, "We have been created to contribute. We have been created to contribute." His son, Herbert Dartrey Jr., who's an excellent educator, has worked both in New York and New Jersey, currently in Jersey, pardon me, had a quote that I remembered that I wrote down saying, "Your actions impact others. What you do will impact others." So we really need to think about what we do. We also have on Ezekiel Hunt, a 20-something writer, orator, scholar, activist who's at Prairie View A&M University, where I met him over a year ago. I was actually teaching at Prairie View A&M University, and his brother read an essay about growing up in Los Angeles that blew my mind. And Ezekiel Hunt, remember that name. I think he's going to be one of our great, great, great writers. Much love and respect to Ezekiel. I want to shout out Quentin Walcott, who's the executive director of Connect NYC. Connect NYC. Jump in, Quentin. Where is the event today, the Father's Day pledge today for those who are in New York City metropolitan area?
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. We're going to be down at New York City Hall steps in front of the mayor's office, right on the steps for our 15th annual Father's Day pledge. So if you're downtown or financial area, if you're on the other side of the Brooklyn Bridge, come on over and we're going to say this pledge together. Father's Day pledge against violence, from domestic violence, community violence, gun violence, all forms of violence.
Yes, sir. That's Quentin Walcott, Executive Director of Connect NYC. David Young, Director of Toledo Excel and Special Projects, University of Toledo. Wonderful program. You all probably know about Excel programs around the country. Works with high schoolers, college students, making sure that our kids from backgrounds like mine. I'm a first-generation college student because of programs like Toledo Excel. He's also a proud member of my fraternity, our fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I want to shout out Pastor Kendrick Bryant, motivational speaker and a host of a Father's Perspective podcast. Kendrick Bryant, motivational speaker and a host of a Father's Perspective podcast. Pastor Kendrick, where can people hear your podcast, please?
Anywhere you listen to podcasts, it will be there.
Got it.
All digital platforms.
And I need to say this, and when we talk about the documentary that's coming out in the fall, we also have a soundtrack that was created by multi-platinum producer Vidal Davis. 13 songs on there, and 3 of the songs are by Pastor Kendrick's son, Kedron, who's 16 and just a brilliant singer, including the opening song for the film. So I'm really excited for people to hit his soundtrack. It's going to be beautiful. Chaplain Peter Jones, who's the chaplain for the New York City Police Department, an incredible community leader out of Brooklyn, New York. Shout out to Brooklyn, New York. Brother Pete is also very active in fighting for the rights of the disabled community as a member of that community. We have on Jelani Young. Is Jelani there? Photographer, content creator, new father. Shout out to Jelani, who I've known since he was a boy, who is a grown man now, very much so in his 20s as well, as a father. And that happens to be the son of David Young. Keith Masco, actor, producer, and the founder of the Triggered Project. Keith is brilliant, in my opinion, talking about mental health and traumas. And Keith, you have some of the most wittiest lines in the film. And just your honesty about your own journey as a man, which you're going to get into in a second. Byron, did I introduce Byron already? Did I mention Byron already? Byron Hurt,
your time.
The documentary filmmaker. Byron's, your website is BeHurt.org. Is that right?
BeHurt.org. Yeah, BeHurt.com. Excuse me. BeHurt.com.
BeHurt.com. BeHurt. And you can find his films on Amazon Prime. He did say that. Amazon Prime. Dr. Jamal Mazik, oh my God, Dr. Jamal Mazik. I need to say this to you all as well. Out of the 70 black men that we have in this film coming out in the fall, 12 have the word doctor in front of their names, which is incredible. You know, to see so many black men representing like that. He's an expert in inclusion and equity. Did I get everyone on this call right now? I think I got everyone. Yeah, we got to take a
But I want to jump in and say this.
Yes.
I want to jump in and say this real quickly, if I can.
Yes.
You know, you mentioned my film, I Am a Man, Black Masculinity, as being sort of influential in you making your film. But I just want to say for the record that you were very influential in me making I Am a Man, Black Masculinity in America.
Wow.
You know, I read your work, you know, as a young brother, you know, reading your work, reading your essays, reading your writing, you know, reading, reading about your own evolution and growth and process as a black man. And it had a tremendous influence on me. You know what I mean? So you're giving us a lot of props this morning, and certainly all of the brothers are deserving and worthy of that props. But you deserve a lot of props for gathering all of these brothers to have this conversation today. You know, it's important what you're doing, the work that you're doing, because you are uplifting us as Black men and as fathers, and you're seamlessly weaving these stories about fatherhood into a radio show, which is not easy to do. So I just want to thank you, brother, for including me and including all of us in this program.
And I appreciate it. All praises due to God, as always, as we say. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the late, great Joe Madison, who created this space in the morning shows that many of us are now filling in Monday through Friday. I'm just here Wednesdays and Thursdays, but I also want to acknowledge Karen Hunter, who first had me on her show over the last year and a half, and we kept talking about, she said, Kevin, you know, let's do some things for Black men. Let's do some things for Black men. So I need to acknowledge that, because Karen always talks about the role of her father in her life, her late father as well. And, you know, we only have a couple of minutes before we take a break. We have another hour after this, so whoever can stick around, please. We want to keep this conversation going. We got to get to Keith and Jamal and Jelani. But I just want to say to you all, this is helping me, and I hope it's helping listeners out there. I see y'all. We're going to get to some calls. And I think, you know, something you said earlier, Byron, as we go to break, about context, as you were talking about your dad. I found out after my father was gone, and I went to his gravesite, and I talked to his tombstone and said that I forgave him for not being there, that my father was illiterate. My father was a truck driver. He could not read or write. I didn't know he couldn't read or write. I've written 16 books, y'all. That blew my mind. I found out that my father had fled the South when he was a young man because he had gotten into an altercation with some white folks. And you know what happened back in the day? If a Black man got into it with white folks, you had to flee. I was like, well, that's where the rebel spirit of me came from. So I learned some things and that helped me to contextualize why my father may not have been able to really represent in any way. So I think forgiveness is something that's hard to do.
You probably been to like 13, so you're good.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Keith, Jamal, Jelani, I'm going to introduce you, bring y'all into the conversation, and then it's kind of free flowing. Whoever wants to speak after that, but I want y'all to introduce and why this topic is important to y'all. Is that cool? And I appreciate y'all holding on. I mean, I know, again, everyone's busy, but just thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so much.
And I don't know if I'm gonna get to hear Brother Keith, Brother Jamal, but it's a pleasure meeting y'all, and also everybody that spoke, just hearing y'all different perspectives. You know what I'm saying? I think this is great. Yeah, I'm gonna have to leave in a second, but I hope to see some of y'all on Saturday. And yeah.
What's going on Saturday?
Oh, you know what, Zeke, I got to tell you, they moved there was a Father's Day march happening in Brooklyn that they moved to the Bronx. So it's all the way up in the Bronx now. So I'm actually not going to go because it's.
Oh, okay.
I love the Bronx, but, you know, Brooklyn. New York is spread out, man.
90 seconds.
If you
Is that
Zeke,
A.T. Mitchell's joint?
That's A.T. Mitchell's thing, yes, sir. Yeah. Zeke, if you could just hold, if you have a few seconds to hear, I think it's important for you to hear Keith, Jamal, and Jelani. I would appreciate it. Then jump off if you need to. Is that all right?
Yeah, I can hear it because mental health, that's right up my alley for sure. So
yes, sir.
1 minute.
Kevin, what would you like to come back from break with? Gladys Knight and the Pips. Yeah.
Playing the joints, man.
Yeah, man, we were digging through the crates, man. Like, you know, we're the dope songs supporting fathers. You know what I mean?
That's the Daddy I Could Swear.
I Declare, yeah. And I want to, fellas, whoever can stay on, and, you know, again, y'all are welcome to stay with me to 10 o'clock, whatever y'all Eastern time. But I want to also pivot towards some practical things. I think y'all been saying it. I know y'all been saying it throughout, but we can kind of highlight some bullet points around, here's things I can do to be a better father. Here are things I can do to be a better man. If we can come back to those points at some time before you jump off, I'd appreciate it, you know. Not do this by myself. Shout out to my sister Karen Hunter, who made it possible for me to even be in this chair. Shout out to Sam, our producer in Chicago, Daryl, our engineer in DC, and definitely Jonah, she, her, my associate producer. We hold it down here together in New York City. I want to shout out the guests that are here. Just thank you, brothers, so much. We have an amazing group of people that are on the program with us today. We're talking about Black fatherhood, Black manhood. All 20 some odd of them who are here are in the film we have coming out in the fall called When We Free the World. We'll be doing this again. We'll be doing it in person around the country, talking about Black fatherhood, Black manhood, because I think when we bring folks together and men talk, man, the answers are there. And I've heard so many things today. I've been crying, listening to the voices of these brothers, the testimonies. I appreciate their honesty, their vulnerability. We started off with Reverend Herbert Darty Sr., his son Herbert Darty Jr., Ezekiel Hunt is still holding on with us, Quentin Walcott, David Young, Kendrick Bryan, Peter Jones, Jelani Young, Keith Maskell, Byron Hurt. We got other folks that are going to be calling in shortly from different parts of the country. Let's just jump in, y'all, because we kind of moved over to mental health and how that may affect our definitions of manhood and fatherhood. Keith, Jamal, Jelani, please jump in, whatever's on your heart and minds as you think about fatherhood and manhood where you are in your life right now. Keith, Jamal, Jelani?
Yeah, I'll jump in right here. Peace to everybody. Kevin, thank you so much for putting us together. Thank you so much for believing in me. You've poured so much love and confidence, in me, that I feel indebted in a lot of ways.
Wow.
And you did that out of the kindness of your heart, connecting around this project, but really pushing me to find my voice and lean into that, and start writing. So I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. But my name is Keith Maskell, founder of the Trigger Project. I am doing work around and sharing my story as a survivor of sexual abuse. I created a one-man show along with John Olawalia Decoje called Triggered Life. We have developed that and made it and are now using that, a film version of the show, using that as a learning tool to change how social workers, psychologists, now educators learn about Black boys and trauma. We are, of course, also doing, basic work around monologue work around helping people redefine their manhood, right? And I think for myself, as being a survivor of sexual abuse, that was something that was really important to me to have to do, right? And being Bayesian, is not something that we talk about in terms of sexual abuse. And I could see the collateral damage of what happened to the men in my family. I do not know where it came from, but I could see the collateral damage and the effects that it had and how it played out in terms of how my father displayed his manhood. I try to take the best from him, right? And learn from everything else. But what was difficult was that there were certain times when he was emotionally unavailable, and very over-sexualized in a lot of ways. And that was something that was really, really difficult for me to navigate and to understand how that played in terms of his manhood, right? But I was clear that some of these things weren't healthy for me. And I tried to figure out what his story was, because that's what we don't, and Quentin, you talked about it before, we've talked about it. And Brian, you talked about it a little bit too, in terms of finding out the stories of our fathers, right? Finding out what their stories are. And most of the time they don't tell us because they're trying to protect themselves from the truth, because that's the hardest thing for us to be able to tell ourselves, which is the truth of what has happened. And so they don't tell us their stories because of that. And then, whatever that trauma or whatever that emotional injury plays out in their manhood and how they deal with us. But if we don't understand what happened, then it's difficult for us to define our own manhood, because we're stuck in the narrative of our fathers, narrative that they haven't admitted to themselves. And I think that is really difficult. And that's where the mental health piece comes in, because, and I'll just speak for myself as a survivor of abuse, all the things that I learned about being a man were all the same things that were in the way of my healing.
Wow. Wow.
Right. And so I had to go through that process of redefining what manhood meant to me. And then having that discussion with my partner, my wife, Roxanne, who runs the Trigger Project with me. And we have a podcast called,
shout out to Roxanne.
No doubt, podcast called Living a Triggered Life, where we're talking about how the trauma of me being a survivor, how does it play out in a relationship and how we figure it out. Right. So we had to have an honest conversation, because also how she learned about manhood, right? How she learned about it, she brought that into our relationship as well. So we had to have a discussion about me redefining how I needed to show up in the relationship in my manhood, but then also talking about how what she's experienced also worked into how we relate. And we had to have some really honest conversations, and that was invaluable to me, because she allowed me to have space to redefine it. Right?
I want to bring Jamal and Jelani, and I see you, Justice Rowe. I see you, Justice, into the conversation as well. And I'm going to come back to you, Keith, because you raised some important things. I'm going to come back to you in a second, but I want to get their voices in before we have to go to the next break. Jamal, fatherhood, manhood for you, you have a very different journey, different perspective. Can you talk about it?
Yeah. And first of all, it's an honor and privilege to be here. And I do not have children, but I had a good father growing up. So I had the example. And what was interesting about what Brother Keith just brought up about emotional unavailability, right? So I had a good dad. I now know that I have a great dad as an adult, but when I was younger, he was not emotionally available at all, but he was always there. And so I think there's a distinction there, and just tapping into what that looks like and being an example of a good dad is a present dad. But as an adult, I know that he's a great dad. And I know that because as an adult, I could talk him through what it means for me to be an out gay, Black, married man.
Yes, sir.
And he had a lot of difficulty internalizing. He internalized a lot growing up, and he had a lot of difficulty with my coming out process, which was at 23. But I will say that working through that, I found out he was a great dad, and he's my best friend in the whole world. And it didn't detract from him being a man. It didn't detract from me identifying as a gay man. But I just am really cognizant of what it means to be emotionally unavailable. And I wish growing up I could have talked with him more about who I am, because it shaped how I show up in my own relationship, how I show up at work, how I expect other people to show up that are around me. And so I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you all on what all of this means, and making sure that if I do go down that fatherhood journey myself, I know what examples I can pull from. And yeah, I'm just grateful to be here.
Wow. Thank you. Jelani, please jump in. We're just talking about fatherhood and manhood, what it means to you. You're a new father.
Most definitely. Hello everyone. My name is Jelani Young. And for me, it is a little bit of a different experience as well. Because like you said, David Young is the only father that I know. I was adopted at 3 months. So growing up, especially as an African-American male during that time period, when I was in high school, that was a time when Trayvon Martin was killed. Things of that nature, that's kind of like the spark of all of the craziness that's been going on in the world as of late. So that was a very transformative period for me. It wasn't that my father or mother weren't giving me enough love, but it's the internal demons, that mental health issues that either that we're born with or through experiences that we go through on a day-to-day, whether it be racism and not knowing how to navigate through it. And it's a lot different now that I have a child of my own. Because one, I can't think as a child. I have to kind of move multiple steps ahead before I make any type of decisions because it's not only my life that's at stake. So that's been really like, it was definitely a trying period for me. Right before she was born, she's about to turn 2 on August 19th. Right before she was born. Thank you. It's really been the best gift I ever could have received. Next to being able to hop on this panel with the rest of all these great African American males. But I stated like it was a period because like I didn't really know what to do. Is because we're not giving a guideline on how to be great fathers. Yeah, I saw who my father was, but in a sense, my goal wasn't to be like my father, it was to be better than him. And that is the same type of drive that I'm trying to instill into my daughter today. My father is a great man. He's got great shoes to fill. But what can I do to not only put my imprint onto the world, but show her that there's no way that no one can stop her from reaching her destiny.
Justice Rowe Williams. Hey, my brother. How are you? Good morning to you. You're muted, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, brother. Good morning. Thank you for having me. So my name is Justice. I am a Black man of trans experience. I am the founder of Fitness for All Bodies, which is an organization that works with those within the fitness industry to understand what it means to work with all bodies, all identities, and to break down what I would like to think of as patriarchal masculinity, right? To own ourselves and be authentic within ourselves, which brings me to the work. I work with men on the spectrum, both trans men, cis men, and those that identify as non-binary, deconstructing these ideas, right? And to help us to expand our ideas of fatherhood, right? So I have been adopted by my trans sons, and I'm seen as their father. I have two fathers. I have a trans father and my father that I lived with that would visit me. He wasn't in my life. He was in and out of my life, but he's a good man. And
please mute. Sorry, Justice. Please continue.
No, that's all right. The ideas of masculinity that I learned from my father boxed me in to how I could be a man in society today and the ways that I view masculinity and manhood. But I'm always going to say my father is a good man. He is a product of the society that he lived and existed within, right? His experience is deeply learned, right? And we are forced in a white supremacist society to conform in so many ways. And so I don't blame him for the pain and the trauma that he experienced throughout his life and didn't have the privilege of conversations like this to navigate differently, because I believe in his heart he would, right? And so that makes my purpose. My purpose is to exist in the world to help us to connect to our authenticity, to deconstruct the ideas that we've inhaled from the environment around us that place us in boxes and restrict us from being the men, the very powerful men that we are seeking and journeying to find throughout our lives each day.
Y'all are listening to Urban View Mornings. This is Kevin Powell. We're doing a conversation today. Thank you, Justice Rowe Williams, about manhood and fatherhood. And everyone in this session today, all 3 hours, about 20 some odd brothers are in the documentary film we have coming out in the fall called When We Free the World. And I will say to you all, it's 5 generations of black males from teenagers to 90-something. It's all different identities of black males. That is intentional because oftentimes we separate, ghettoize, or erase people because of who they are, whether they are disabled, whether they are short-statured, whether they are identifying as trans or queer. We can go on down a list of things, or formerly incarcerated. We have brothers of all different identities. We have 12 brothers in the film who have doctor in front of their names. We have some brothers who never finished high school, you know, and we try to make sure that all voices are represented. And we're trying to do that here today as we talk about Black manhood, Black fatherhood. I see Brother Lasana in California and Steve Jackson. I want y'all to jump in. We're talking about fatherhood, manhood, and other brothers, please jump in as well as we're talking about this. And I see all the callers. Steve, what is fatherhood? What does manhood mean to you? Lasana, the same question, especially as you're listening to some of the voices that were on here already. And thank you, brothers who've been holding on. I appreciate you, Keith. I appreciate you, Jamal, Jelani, Justice, for sharing. And I just want to hear from these brothers. Then we're going to open the floor back up and just kind of talk. And also, we're constantly talking about mental health in Black men. We have heard traumas come up a few times. Steve, I know you have a lot to say about fatherhood, manhood. You want to jump right in, please? Steve, I think you're muted. You're muted.
Before the brother gets on and speaks, I actually got to go. So I just wanted to leave off with this. On this conversation of mental health, I wrote something down that just struck me, like hearing y'all speak. And I really think that being a better man is going to require us to speak. It's going to require more conversations like this. I feel like emotional repression brings spiritual recession. And so for us to grow, for us to elevate, I think conversations like this are necessary. So y'all have a good one. I think I'll see some of y'all while I'm out here. Peace.
Definitely. And I want to stress that Quentin's organization, Connect NYC, does conversations like this on a regular basis. Just go to connectnyc.org to check that out. Steve, can you try?
Can you hear me now?
The Steve Jackson's on the line. Dr. Steve Jackson, educator, activist, father of six. Steve.
Can y'all all hear me?
Yes.
First of all, good morning, everybody. Y'all gotta excuse me. I'm just flying in from Georgia. I'm back in New York City, where I'm originally from. Yes, I have 6 children and I have 8 grandchildren.
Wow.
My youngest child is 24 and my oldest son is 45. So I got a large spectrum of children. And from what I've been hearing, you have different brothers, you know, that come from different spectrums. You know, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. And when I grew up, manhood was a little different, especially in terms of fatherhood, because I had my first child when I was like 17 or 18. And I was taking care of my son because all of my children basically live with me. And, you know, the interesting thing about fatherhood for me is I knew that I wanted my children to be more successful than I was. And as a young man, you know, unfortunately, I was incarcerated. I spent time on Rikers Island because I was running the streets for a little bit. And after I spent a little time on Rikers Island, when I came home, I took my behind to Howard University, got my degree in chemistry and mathematics, and never looked back. But for me, having children, it was important to not only be a role model, but more importantly, be able to support them. And all of my children graduated from HBCUs only because I was there to support them as well as their mother. But the thing about fatherhood for me is being able to support your children, being able to be there for your children, and being able to have real conversations. Now, keep in mind, you know, 2 of my children, my male children. Oh, this is the shuttle. I'm sorry, the shuttle to pick me up because I got to go get this rental car because I'm just coming in.
That's all right.
Good morning. Hey, so look, it's real. I'm coming in. We're going over to the shuttle. Right. Okay. How y'all doing? Yeah. So you'll see people in here. I'm on a radio session. I'm talking to people. Ace. Right. Thank you. Yeah. I'm sorry, people. But the bottom line is that you know, as a father, it's important to be a not only a role model, but be there to support your children. And even with my son, when somewhere around the age of 15, 2 of my children wanted to challenge me. And of course, you know, they got in my face, and you know, I'm a martial artist. So I had to knock their ass out, excuse the expression. But the reality is that they learn from that experience that you don't challenge your father physically like that, because generally at that age, you might not be able to handle your father. And I'm not saying that in a matter of, being negative, but sometimes you got to stand strong when your children may not understand certain things. And to this day, they thank me and love me for it. And they're better people because I wasn't going to allow them to just push me around and do certain things. In addition, I've been the principal for over 20 years. I have over 36 years as an administrator. And currently I'm the chair of the principals panel for NAEP. So I've worked with thousands of children, over the years, being the principal of Grady High School in Brooklyn, being the principal of Dunbar High School, which is the first African-American high school in the country. But more importantly, people look for Black men to have some type of strength, some type of integrity, but more importantly, being able to knowledge and information to the children that they're actually working with. And so as a father, my job is being able to at least give information to my children, to people that I deal with on a daily basis. So excuse me for rambling, folks, but I'm just coming in. I got people around, and as you can see, they talking and everything in the background. I'm sorry.
Before we go to a break, I want to get our brother Eternal Polk in. That was Dr. Steve Jackson was just speaking about fatherhood, man. And brother Polk, please jump in. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Eternal Polk since his son was a little boy who's now a grown man in his 20s as well, literally watching Xavier grow up. What does it mean for you to be a father? What does manhood mean for you at this stage in your life?
Oh, so there's my son just jumping in right now. So what does it mean to be a father?
Yes,
and what was the second part?
And a man now, when you think about your journey as a man from then to now, and how has fatherhood helped you in your journey as a man?
Oh man. What I tell folks, some people just have a fathering spirit. And before I was a father, my friends, my friend group, my male friend group, I was the ones like, call, it was before we had cell phones, right? I was like, call me when you get home. Let me know you got home safe. I always had that concern. And then, I'm an older brother. So, I had a little sister that I was always sort of, taking care of. And so I've always had a fathering spirit. But, part of that conversation for me as a father was the fact that my father was a challenge for me as a young boy. Will Smith talked about how his father was his greatest tormentor. He learned a lot from his father, but his father was a tormentor. And my father was very much the same. I was afraid of my father. And part of my journey to being a father was like, I want to prove that there's a better way to do it than the way that he's doing it.
Wow.
And it was that was part of the thing with me wanting to be a father, to say, I'm going to show you there's a different way. And so for me, being a father, it has been many things. I know some people say you're not supposed to be friends with your children, but to each their own with that. I want to be a friend to my child. I have a daughter now too. And that changed, having a son, being born in Brooklyn and in the 90s was different than having a daughter at, when I was 40 something years old, and she's being raised in Charlotte. There's
North Carolina.
And I remember the line when Jay-Z said, you got a daughter now, you need to be softer now. And it's interesting because my son will tell you, he said my sister got a different father than I got.
Wow.
And I brought up Will Smith because Will Smith said he was a gentle kid. He was a gentle boy. And my son, he could attest to this. He said, I wanted the father in a way. He wanted the gentleness that I have with my daughter with him. And I was saying that, hey man, I was 25 when I had you. I was trying to figure things out. I was in Brooklyn in the 90s. Like I was different. And I had to approach, in my mind, I had to approach fatherhood differently. But for me, it means being an advisor, being a friend, being a guider. And it also means elevating yourself, like, because you're not just one person as a father from the time you become a father to this point. Like when you grow, you should grow as a father.
You should grow as a father. Kendrick, Brian, I know you have to go. Eternal, please hold on. Lasana, please hold on. Other folks that are coming in. Kendrick, you wanted to say a quick word before you split, because I know you have to leave. And thank you for being on for so long.
Oh, I have thoroughly enjoyed all of the insight, and thank you, Kevin.
Thank you for being on.
For just having me on, and thank you for all that you've done, even with the music with my son. And I'm just eternally grateful for that, and thank all of you brothers for adding to my perspective as you shared this morning. So much insight, so many tools that will go in the tool bag. So many venues that I'm going to connect myself to, podcasts and websites and things of that sort, and on and on and on. But I am grateful, and I am encouraged. I am encouraged this morning to continue to thrive and endeavor to be the best me in fatherhood and in leadership as a whole. So thank y'all, and God bless y'all.
God bless you, Brother Kendrick O'Brien. This is Kevin Powell, Urban View Mornings, Sirius XM Channel 126. We are coming back. We have a full house here, folks. We see all the calls. I see y'all. We just want to make sure we get all these brothers who are here. Lasana, I'm coming back to you. Eternal, everyone, Justice, all of you, I'm coming back to you in a second. We just got to take a commercial break, and then we got our last half hour of the show. Thank y'all. This has been a beautiful, emotional conversation. It's going to continue in a second.
I got to step as well, brothers, but it's been truly an honor, and I'm humbled by all of you, the experiences and stories that you've shared, and I will definitely stay in connect. I appreciate you all, Byron, Kev, Keith, family, and my new family. Peace.
No doubt. Peace, man. Check your text message.
Okay, cool.
All right, we have Charlie Braxton on the. Oh, Kevin might not be able to hear me. But if any of you is not on video, you may want to turn your video on just so that Kevin is able to see you. Because there's so many people connected that we want to make sure everyone, is
Hey,
acknowledged.
good morning, everyone. Again, are y'all good? Everyone's able to stick around that's on here right now? Okay, so Sana, Charlie.
Hold on, let me make.
Hey, Brother Rennie, I see you. Peace, brother. So we're going to go to the folks who haven't spoken yet, and then we're just going to open the floor up and have it free-flowing. This last half hour for folks who just joined.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Charlie. We got folks in
Hey,
Mississippi,
brother.
Massachusetts, California, Turner, are you in North Carolina?
Yes, sir. Charlie.
Ohio, Jersey. This is dope.
1 minute.
Kevin, I got to bounce, man. I got to bounce in a few minutes, but I just want to hear what Lasana Hotep has to say.
Aha, yes, sir. Yes, sir. No one's coming into the studio.
"30 seconds, muting mics."
Kevin, we have Ista Clark on the phone. Couldn't connect on Zoom, so called in.
Good morning, my son. Good morning.
This particular show, all 3 hours, to talking about black manhood, black fatherhood. We have several brothers, probably about 20, that are going to be in this film we have coming out in the fall called When We Free the World. The film has 5 generations of black men, teenagers to 90-somethings, all different black male identities. That's intentional, not separating, not erasing, not acting like certain kinds of brothers don't exist. We are all brothers. We are all brothers. We are all brothers. And that is a beautiful thing with this film. The film, just like this conversation, we talk about fatherhood, manhood, mental health. We talk about ways that we can be better fathers, better men. We have some brothers who are fathers, some folks who had fathers, some folks who are fatherless, like myself. We don't separate, but we also want to acknowledge that black fathers do exist. Black fathers do exist. Black fathers do exist. I want to bring in Lasana Hotep, Charlie Braxton, Xavier Polk. I want y'all to just say a few words about what manhood, what fatherhood means to you. We have a little bit of time left, and we want to start moving this conversation towards some things that people can think about, what they can do. And just to give you a further prep, we've been talking very bluntly about vulnerability and all kinds of things. There have been tears flowing. Some of us have been talking about not having fathers or trying to figure it out. So this has been a beautiful conversation, a lot of calls. We've only been to get in a few because we wanted to hear your voices. And Carl, just bear with us. I'll be back Wednesday. If y'all want to debrief on this next Wednesday for one of the hours of the show, we can definitely do that to talk about this. But Lasana, Charlie, Xavier, please jump into the conversation. Fatherhood, manhood, either or both, please. Lasana.
Appreciate the invitation, KP. Great to be with all the brothers. For the sake of time, I'll just, say something that I actually say in the film. There's an African proverb that says one father is better than 100 teachers, and a father, first and foremost, whether he would like to be or not, is a role model, right? Our young folks, especially our children, I have 3 children, I have 2 daughters, and I have a son. They're looking to us for guidance, and they're looking to us for modelship. When I was growing up, I grew up in the 80s and 90s in LA at the height of crack cocaine and gangbanging, where all the movies were made about. I lived it, right? So pick a LA menace, boys, and pick them all. I'm in the cast in real life, not as a character. And my father was one of the folks who was subjected to a lifelong addiction to substance abuse. And so I have a relationship with my father, have always had a relationship with my father, but he wasn't in the household. So I'm a product of community fathering, right?
Community fathering. Wow.
Yeah, my uncle stepped in, right? My barber stepped in. You know what I'm saying? He's still over there on Gage in Vermont right now. And I still go to him as a father figure, right? And so I had to kind of create a Ramir Bearden collage of manhood and fatherhood in order to navigate and negotiate what I had to deal with in LA. But the thing about it is that it's translated over into my life. So other than the children that are in my household right now, I'm a godfather to several children, right? I'm Uncle Lasana to several children, always at a graduation, always at a birthday party, always at a wedding, right? Because the value that community fathering brought to me, I'm able to extend it out to others. And that's the blessing that I have had through my journeyhood as a person who was community fathered, a person who is a biological father, but also as a person who has been a broader, more extended father figure within the community. And the thing that's been the consistent through line is the fact that folks need consistency. Young people need someone that's going to be able to challenge them without judging them, and to be able to give them a sense of protection and cover. And those are the things that I actually, stand on in my fatherhood, is providing cover, providing some type of consistency and some type of guidance.
let me bring in Charlie and Xavier. Charlie, you're a father, you're a grandfather, but you didn't have your father in your life either. And we've had a few brothers talk about how they didn't have their fathers in their lives, or their fathers didn't have their fathers, but they figured out how to be fathers. How did you do it? How are you doing?
My connection is unstable.
Charlie, we'll come back to you in a second. Xavier, good morning, brother. How are you? We just heard
If
your father,
anybody can hear
Eternal
me.
Polk, speaking. Charlie, are you there?
Yeah,
It's a little choppy. It's a little choppy. Let's go to Xavier. We're gonna come back to you in a second, Charlie. Xavier Polk is the
connection's a bit
son.
unstable. I'm here.
Yeah, it's choppy, Charlie. We're gonna go to Xavier first. We don't have a lot of time, so we're gonna go to Xavier first. We'll come back to you in a second. Thank you, Byron. Thank you for being here, brother Brian. Byron Hurt, please check him out. BeHurt.com. Great filmmaker, dozen films or so, documentary filmmakers, films. Please check him out. Xavier, Fatherhood, Manhood from you. I watched you grow up with Eternal, who's one of my favorite fathers in the whole country. Can you talk about what you learned about fatherhood, about manhood?
Well,
your father.
specific. So my father, I think my father covered a lot on what I experienced in terms of he wasn't just my father, he was my friend. You know, he had me at 25. So we grew up together. You know, I saw, you know, all of the different versions of him. And while he was my main parent, I looked for a lot in him that he couldn't give me at the time. And that created some sort of thing for me that, you know, kept me distant eventually made me distant. But I think now, you know, a lot of time has passed since you've filmed this. Now, as I'm 20, about to be 29, and I think I was like 20 when we did this, when we shot this. And now I think my perspective is more about understanding, and there is a greater depth of understanding that I have generationally, because I know that now I know it's way beyond my father, it's way beyond my grandfather, it's way beyond, you know, I'm here with my mom, my uncle just passed, and I'm understanding a different perspective of family and support. My mom, she has two other baby fathers, and they are also father figures in my life. My mother fortunately picked three good men to have children with. And me and my father was actually just talking about how each of the fathers are all cool with each other, and that's not normal. You know what I mean? Like, well,
Oh,
we're all Dallas Cowboy fans.
They're
So.
all Cowboys fans. Dallas Cowboys.
They're all Cowboys fans. And
you see the reaction to the Cowboys in this call?
How about Dallas Cowboys bringing us together?
Hey,
don't say nothing bad about them Cowboys.
Oh, it's Charlie's in Mississippi. He's close too. That's sensitive territory. That's like y'all talking about my Yankees or the Celtics for Keith, or the Boston Celtics for Keith and the Boston folks. They gonna win though anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Cowboys are always Super Bowl champions in my head every year.
Y'all need to get a real one though. It's been since the 90s. Since you were born.
But it's living our fantasy, all right?
Why
you bringing up old stuff, man? Why you bringing up old stuff?
Hey, there's always next year. There's always next year.
All right. It's going to be the 2200 in a minute. But no, Xavier, please finish your point. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. But I'll wrap this up, and I'll just say that, you know, from that conversation, I talked to my father recently, and I was like, you know, he told me how he had operated with the other fathers that was around me. And he had to go to each of the other fathers and say, hey, you're around, you're a father, you're going to be a father figure to my son. The way you treat his mother is the way he's going to look at you, and way he's going to look at how he treats other women, and how he conducts himself as a man. So that like initiative, like even learning that about my father, I'm like, okay, I can't
and when I listen to all the stuff that he has done, I'm like, wow, you sacrificed a lot. So I think for me, manhood and fatherhood is evolving. I'm watching my father my sister in ways that I'm like, and then I'm looking at my sister, and she is the voice that I wanted to have. You know, she is being parented in the way that I'm like, oh wow, like I wish I had this, but
Your father was a young man.
yeah, no, exactly. So I think it's an evolving relationship, and it's an evolving relationship with fatherhood itself for the father, and then me understanding fatherhood coming into being an adult, you know, and then me accepting my role as a son, and accepting my father's fatherhood too. I think that's another dynamic that isn't discussed for the sons, for the daughters. So I am learning I'm learning about my father, honestly, in a new way. And our dynamic and our love is and bond is deepening in a new way. And I'm excited. You know, there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of when people refer to their experiences from father, it does involve a lot about pain. And at the funeral yesterday, for my uncle, I got up in front of my family, and we both have an estranged relationship with family. And I stood up in front of my family while the casket was there and everything. And I'm like, this is an opportunity for us to form relationship and connection in a way that is detached from what you knew about how you connected yourself to pain with family. Because this uncle who passed, he hadn't this uncle who had passed, he hadn't talked to the family in a long time. And so me being removed and him being removed, it's like, we shouldn't be here. This shouldn't be a conversation. And so I appreciate, I know I'm rambling, but I appreciate that
No, you're
there
fine. You're fine.
there is I thank God for changing my perspective from, you know, cause I'm sorry. I'm
Let's
sorry. I just think that it's important to be future based and to look at the room for growth and look at the room for connection, look at and detaching how what we knew about pain and what we knew about our past before, and really using that room to connect to establish a new connection with yourself as a father. And if you haven't experienced fatherhood and you had to father yourself, even establishing that new connection with, you know, like Hotep said, ended up being the beacon, being the person that that fed that father energy. So
wow.
I think it's more so about, you know, now I'm in the seat as a son, and now I'm understanding my father in a new way. It's about establishing a fresh connection in a evolving relationship with understanding, always being willing to understand the generational conversation, and then the person that is in front of you, that father that is in front of you, and understanding him as a human being.
Let's break it there. We got to take one last break. Fellas, brothers, please hold on if you can, because our show ends in about 15 minutes. But I want to get Brother Rennie in, and Brother Steve, I want to come back to you in a second as well. And Xavier Polk was just speaking, and we purposely have had folks on here from various generations, from 20-somethings on this show to 90-something, where we started with Reverend Daughtry this morning, Senior. We'll be back. This is Urban View Mornings with Kevin Powell, Sirius XM Channel 126. We're talking all 3 hours about Black fatherhood, Black manhood, what it means to us. And I believe if we're really listening closely, audience out there, there's a lot of solutions, a lot of action steps in these
Hey, son. I hear you over there, son.
Hey, yeah.
You had me holding back tears, brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, hey, I got a little flustered, and I was like, let me bring it on home. But I hope I communicated something for people to ingest.
You did.
Context
Hey,
is
even if they didn't catch it, I for sure did.
context is a big thing. I think a lot of times, I always try to, despite me and my father's challenges, I always kept in focus what he actually did, because he did a lot. Even though he had some very big shortcomings, I had to keep in focus that this wasn't a man who, as my son said, he was a human being and challenged as such. But I think context is a big thing for us, and I don't think our generation got a lot of context from our fathers. It was kind of like do what I say, and this is how it's done, without any context, and oftentimes without a lot of love, in addition. So, we were left wondering like, okay, who am I, and how do you see me, and what's my relationship to you really? And so that was
1 minute.
one of the things that I really tried to
I agree. I think that the context is the thing that heals. And, when eradicating that my truth perspective and really getting to the real root of the truth. And once you start aligning yourself with that, which is what I'm in the process of doing now, there is
30 seconds.
a greater peace that is starting to be introduced into my life now that I'm, aligning myself with that.
20 seconds, muting mics.
Quickly, because we don't have a lot of time left, and I know brothers are different schedules, and we have folks on the call throughout, 20 some odd brothers. Everyone that you've heard today as a guest is actually in a film we have coming out in the fall called When We Free the World. It's a documentary about black manhood, about black fatherhood. We have 5 generations of black males represented, from teenagers to 90 something, and every kind of black male you can think of. And Brother Rennie, you have some very powerful moments in the film. I can't wait folks to see it, but just jump in. You've been listening to brothers talk. Just really quickly, what does fatherhood mean to you now where you are in your life? And you're a father, obviously, and I believe you're a grandfather as well. Is that right?
Yes, good morning. Salam alaikum, hotel, peace, grace and peace.
Peace to
and
you.
I extend any other greetings any of you brothers accustomed to. And today, fatherhood is meaningful. Yesterday, it meant nothing to me because of the lifestyle I was living at that time. I strayed away from the values of what a father should be, and I ended up in prison. I served 27 years in prison.
Wow.
I was in prison for a crime I didn't commit. But while I was in prison, I learned the importance of what fatherhood is. I started seeing a lot of young brothers walking around just like me, and I was their age, because I didn't have a chance to even meet my father. So then I started educating these young brothers, and I seen that they all started looking up to me and everything. So I reached over the wall and I made a connection with my own 3 children, my 2 daughters and my 1 son, who are all by 3 different women, unfortunately, right? And I made that connection with them. And I asked my oldest child, my daughter, I said, I would appreciate it. It would mean so much to me if you could connect with your brother and your sister, and she did that for me. right? And I continue to grow and learn. And I made a commitment effort that when I get out, I'm going to be in their lives and do what I can. At first I just want to be their friend because I was going so long from them that, they really didn't know me. Today, I'm a grandfather and I'm very instrumental in their lives. And I'm also instrumental in other children's lives in our community because I know as many of you brothers, you witness throughout America, we're losing our child, we're losing our children. So fatherhood is important. You know what I'm saying? Today, I work in the cure violence community and I go around, I speak to these young brothers and sisters too about the consequences of their actions and effects of these crimes. I said, we're losing too many of us, and these communities upstate in prison are benefiting off our ignorance, what we're doing down here. And I learned one valuable thing about myself, that when a child leaves the home without the blessings and guidance of a parent, they end up on an empty pursuit. That's what happened to me. And that's what happens to so many of our children that we're seeing in the streets of America. And we got to get back and we got to get right in these places. A lot of young brothers, they call me OG. I told them I'm not an OG because if I was an OG, I would have more control of these communities. I would have more control of what's going on. I would just like you brothers just call me your big brother or someone that you could come to in a time of need. I said, until we start taking control of these communities and start understanding what's going on and everything in the communities, you could call me OG. I just want to just sustain that because I know the brother said that he ain't a lot of time, but I also ask that you brothers excuse me for my tardiness. I had a little technical difficulties and also rushing to get here. So, I wanted to come here, be on time. I'm always trying to be on time. But thank you, brothers. And again, I just appreciate you, brothers, man, for, inviting me to this forum. It's very enlightening and awakening.
Let me get Charlie Braxton in. He's the last voice on here who hasn't spoken. Charlie in Mississippi. Brother Ren is here in New York. Rennie is in New York City. Charlie, just jump in, please. We only have a few minutes left, but I want you to, because I know you had technical difficulties as well, so I'm glad you came back. Thank you.
Yes, no problem. The one thing I would like to say is that fatherhood doesn't just relate to your children, your immediate children. I think Brother Rennie said it best. We have to be fathers to the community. You never know who's looking at you, who's looking up to you, because my parents divorced when I was 3. So I had to figure out what it meant to be a man, what it meant to be a father. So luckily for me, there were people in the community who set examples. My Uncle Hero, may he rest in peace, married his childhood sweetheart and raised 7 kids and still reached out to me. I remember one time when I was 15, he asked me what I wanted for Christmas. And I had to tell him, you got 7 kids. Don't worry about me.
Wow.
But he still did it. He's like, you're my son, just like
that's right. That's right.
My biological children. You're my nephew. You're my flesh and blood. And that's what we have to understand. We have to begin to look at our children in the streets as extensions of us, whether they are biological children or not. That is the meaning of father.
Someone else said it earlier, community father. And Steve, can you hear me, Steve? And thank you, Charlie Braxton, Brother Rennie. I want to bring you back in for a second because one of the things that you say in the film a lot is that black men have to talk, black men have to talk. And this is in the aftermath of you losing one of your 5 children. Can you just briefly talk about that as we talk? We've been talking about mental health throughout. Can you just share why you say that more than ever, black men have to talk, please? You have to unmute, Steve. Got to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please. You guys got a couple of minutes. Just really quickly, why do you keep saying black men have to talk?
Black men have to talk so that they can exchange ideas, exchange information, but more importantly, being able to relate with one another because we go through similar experiences, but more importantly, some of us go through experiences that others haven't. Like I just heard the brother Charlie talk about being a father to, some of the young brothers that are in your community. As a school principal, I was a father to 2,000-3,000 kids all at one time. So many of these young folk, will need our help. And even when I was coming up as a young brother in the 5% Nation of Islam back in the 70s, we were, and I'm a teenager at the time, we were also, you know, fathers to some of them young brothers that were coming up at that particular time in the community. Okay, I got you. Yeah, I'm getting this card this time. I'm sorry, folks. You know, but the bottom line, is that we have to be, you know, a father to many of our young brothers and sisters in our communities. And by us being able to talk with one another, then we can build some type of not only solidarity, but build some type of consistency in our community by having these conversations. So I think that that's extremely important as we begin to, you know, move into, you know, our community. And for me, also growing up in the nation, that gave me the ability to, you know, meet brothers from all over the country, you know, and even outside of the country, and building strong networking opportunities that will enable us to do certain things.
Brother Steve and all the brothers here and all the brothers who joined us. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up. We're going to have to do this again when the film comes out in the fall. Y'all have been listening to a 3-hour conversation about Black fatherhood, Black manhood. It'll be on the SiriusXM app. It'll be on my YouTube page, Kevin Powell. A lot of folks have been emailing, texting me, how can you support the film? Just go to GoFundMe, type in my name if you want to support that way, or just follow us on social media. So, you know, follow me on social media. But I want to thank all you brothers. We will do this again. The film will be out in the fall. We'll be having in-person conversations. We'll do this in Sirius again. All of y'all out there, I hope this benefited you in some way, especially the Black men who are out there trying to figure out fatherhood and manhood. God bless y'all. We'll be back next week. I'm Kevin Powell. Thank you.